60% design review workshop for the wastewater treatment facility for the town of Eastham. If you want to follow the agenda, hopefully everyone has one of them in front of them. Hopefully Steve, you have one as well. Good, perfect. So I won't share that up on the screen the whole time. But so first I just want to go through the room quick, introduce ourselves. I know some of us have been in the room together, some of us maybe just been virtually together, so officially know everyone. So we'll go around the room here and then we can introduce Steve. So I'm Lauren Livermore. I'm the project manager at GHD for the wastewater treatment plant facility. I am actually from Syracuse, New York, so I've been here virtually a lot, but happy to be here in person with everybody. Spent over 20 years in the industry doing design work, and I think I schooled the whitewater guys, but mostly been wastewater design, some asset management, and some public service on the county side from my deputy commissioner. So I want to give a little bit of background about me. So on to this one. Yeah,
I'm Chelsea Fan. I'm a project engineer for GHD. Just working on this project out of the Hyannis office, so.
Hey everybody, Taylor Drinkwater. Senior civil engineer out of the Boston office. Good to meet everyone.
David Greiger, senior project engineer, also design manager for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and I'm out of the Hill, Pennsylvania office. Welcome.
Rich Avenue, I'm the assistant town manager for Eastham.
Jackie Beebe, I'm the town manager for Eastham, excuse me.
Larry Greenberg, Director of Health and Environment for the town of Eastham.
Eric Smith, business unit leader for Whitewater, operating out of our Charlton office primarily, but go where as needed.
Jim Waldron, Whitewater Operations and Maintenance Manager for Region 2.
St. Alvin, Water Contracts Manager and Assistant Public Works Director for Town of Eastham.
Steve Jonathan, CPC member.
Peter Wade, Capital Projects Committee member.
ZF Gary with Apex Companies. Greg Guidi, Capital Projects.
Can we make room for Fred?
That's all right, I'm very good.
Fred,
let's have a
space
picture.
over here
No one
too.
wants to sit next to me. We have one more person in the back here.
I'm just Mary Shaw and I'm co-chair of the Finance Committee in Eastham.
Great, welcome.
And online.
And online, I think we have Steve. You want to introduce yourself? You're on mute.
People moving around.
CPC member, Steve Kanajic.
Welcome. I do have a sign-in sheet. I will pass around. I think we do have a few people already listed on there. Just want to initial and then fill out.
Lauren, the fire chief will be here in like 5 minutes. Also, she probably can't stay all day, so I don't know if we want to try and zoom around the agenda to get to the things
Yeah.
that would be of interest to her.
Yeah, we might be able to do that. That's actually, I'm really glad that he's coming because, yeah, perfect. Yeah, whenever she gets here, we can always skip to the civil part and then.
Perfect.
So really quick safety moment. As we were preparing today, I just want to let everyone know of the danger of cords. We did look for some ways to cover everything up, whether it's for a carpet, maybe we're finding a different cord over here. So I know it's something simple, but you know, this can have some dangers. So just a really quick safety moment to get us into our meeting. And then I always like to reiterate our critical success factors, especially for this project. So, you know, we're all here today, you know, moving as fast as we can in order to put forth a package to the SRF, to Mass DEP by October 3rd, in order for the town to receive up to $170 million of funding. So we are really excited that everything passed in the special town meeting at the end of June, thanks to the hard work of town staff. So that's really our big motivation right now, is getting that package in. So of course, we're looking at cost control, you know, from a capital and operations perspective, and then also being able to maintain the DPW operations during construction. So that's something we'll be considering as well. So for the purpose of this 60% design review, I said we're going to review the agenda, but I think everyone can kind of look through it. Basically, we're going through all of the disciplines that are included in the package. including a few ancillary things such as permitting, some next steps, and open discussion if there is time. And then in the way back, there is a little bit of nomenclature that we're working on, just in case you have, curiosity of what, particular recharge bed we're talking about or anything of that nature. But I won't spend too much time on that. So, meeting objectives, we really just want to get everyone's thoughts and opinions on the 60% design. As we get further and further towards our October 3rd deadline, there's really less and less time to make, any major changes. And with that, talking quick about our meeting structure, we know that there's a lot that we want to cover today. So if we're starting to eke on the end of the time that I've allotted in this schedule, we will table the question to the end. We do have, I want to say, maybe 25 minutes for open discussion. So definitely write down or take a note of what your question is, and we'll leave it to the end. And if we don't have time at the end, we will schedule, a separate meeting to discuss with the relevant parties to make sure we get questions answered. And of course, if something we can't answer today, we'll follow up with the answer afterwards. I guess, any questions on that? Okay, so I think we have the fire department, there she is. We have the fire department chair here, so I think what we'll do is I want to share the latest rendering video, which will kind of give a good overview of the facility that we're looking at. And then we'll get into some of the site layouts and civil design, which is kind of right in line where we're looking for some input from the fire department. So bear with me one second.
Space, Lisa.
This is secret view.
Yeah.
So Lauren, I'm coordinating with the project here, with our team's chat,
Okay.
and I'm gonna send Jared, the link for the Zoom call.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so some people might remember we had another rendering that was done, by our team, like right in Revit, and this is more of a formal rendering. If any questions after, we can answer, but it's about 4 minutes long. And just, take a look, if you looked at the drawings, hopefully this gives you a little bit more perspective on, what we're looking at. It's our admin building, an office space. And it doesn't go through every room. And our hope is that we can, post this, on the website or whatever you like to do. It's our locker facilities for the operations staff. There'll be 2 bathrooms with shower facilities and changing areas. This is our conference room with a little break area. This isn't built out, this will be our lab facility, so I think that's something we're definitely looking, as we input from Whitewater on. So this full structure is what we're calling the operations building. This is our treatment building. It has the SDRs and other process equipment, the headworks facility right here. Yeah, they put a couple people.
Put it to music or something.
Yeah, that might be good, just.
Like that, like the eighties training video.
I put it online if we want people to watch.
Who's gonna watch it?
I can't remember if there is, cause it's telling me to turn up the volume. But I don't.
Don't, no, don't turn off the
Bad.
volume. This is fine. Just ignore her.
This is those SBR tanks, well, right here is the aerobic divers, but remember our SBR tanks that are currently covered, that we're looking at as an alternate. Yeah, we do have time, if there is any feedback, before we show to the public. We can make sure.
Yes, Rich can do this.
I'm actually noticing too, it's a little smoother on my computer, so I think the extra lag is quite as good. That's it. So hopefully that gives everyone a little bit more visual of what they're looking at in the 2D drawings. So with that, I guess we can go into, we'll table the discussion of 30% review comments and go into our site layout and civil design. Yes, I know we had fire department considerations at the end. I'm not sure if you've been able to look at the drawings and have thoughts.
I haven't, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
We're in the middle, so.
Yeah, no, we're glad you're here to, start the conversation.
Yes.
So I guess we will, I think open up drawings. I guess Taylor, if there's some specific things that you wanna ask about or.
Okay. Yeah, I think once we bring it up, I can just kind of go over the intent of all that access lanes and whatnot. Good work.
You can share.
It's not Ross.
It'll be easy to explain. I think.
Just tell us where we are. So, yeah, that's-
Oh, yeah, 108. Actually, you can just go, I guess you can go 104. It'll show the entire site. I just kind of zoom in on that. Are you on 104? Or, sorry, that should be,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
See 104.
that'll be a good place to start, and then we'll probably flip to 108, which is just a little more zoomed in on the actual new buildings and.
Right.
So kind of just looking at this plan, we try to keep, at least for the most part, a lot of the access the same as what it is now. Obviously, we're putting more infrastructure in, but basically north is to the left. So we're gonna keep everything pretty much the same around the DPW building. And obviously the sticker office. So the main access road to our operations and SBR building, you can kind of see it right there, site access road just on the bottom of the existing DPW building. So we have that as 24 feet wide, coming up where the label is, and then it's minimum 20 feet in between the sand beds that are there.
Right, so it's gotta be a minimum 20 feet for us,
Yeah.
to put the ladder truck in.
Mhm.
And then when the outbreakers go out, it's where 18, almost 19 feet, so it gives us a little bit of room.
So 20 feet would be
You know,
fine.
access, right,
Okay,
so,
that's fine. And it'll be 20 feet of asphalt, by the way,
Right.
in between the beds.
and then, um. This lane coming around the side,
Yes,
it was 20 feet also,
that's also 20 feet. So that's really just there for fire access, and I guess like just looping it.
right,
So
so
it can
I,
come back around.
if I can get you I will get you the sweep analysis for
Okay.
this angle. So that the truck can make this,
Okay.
because if we're not able to come around,
Mhm.
then there's gonna be some sort of. They call it a hammerhead
Right.
type turnaround if we need to.
Mhm. That is why that's there, so we could avoid that, but, we
Right,
did
but I wanna
test
make
like
sure that we can actually get around.
Mhm. Absolutely.
With the length of the truck.
We did test it with a,
You probably did a
7-foot
stopper.
ladder, just like one of the biggest trucks that's in the turning software, so, but yeah, absolutely. If
I can get you
confirm that truck, that'd
The
be
whole
great.
sweep analysis for. Our ladder truck, that would
Okay.
be,
That'd be perfect, and we can definitely round those edges up if we need to. I guess at the end of the day, like, we'll make that.
Right.
accurate, so. And then continuing on, if you can just scroll a little right more. So yeah, that main loop would be there and then going, I'll just call it Plan North now, to exit. But also in between the buildings, from building to building, we have about 48 feet. So would you consider going in between those buildings if you needed to? I guess is that clearance okay?
probably not, we probably wouldn't put a vehicle in between.
Okay. So then what we've done is we did provide a hydrant just north, so left of the operations building. And you'll see we have one, I think it needs a label, but it's to the right of the treatment building. Kind of by that smaller access road that comes back into the transfer. Yeah, right, that's there, right.
Right, okay.
So it should have a label, but we do have a hydrant there as well. And is the hose length? Do you work off like 150 feet? Should we have one?
So we have up to 200
Okay.
right now. But we also have for the large diameter for the hydrants, we have 1,200 feet
Okay,
on each truck.
okay. So then the other access point would be through the transfer station. For reference, these buildings are about at the same location as like where the transfer station stops now. Just to give you like an idea of where those are, so. You have a lot of width, to get through there, turn around, and just like those large trucks that are in there. I guess initially, do you think any other hydrant locations would be preferred, or?
Who's trying to- Right, so there's a hydrant here, I think. And then. Is this a hydrant here?
That is not, no, that's a manhole. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it doesn't freeze.
I can go. It's not the greatest, I'll just go point at it, that works.
Because I know that we've got,
So yeah, we have a hydrant right here,
right,
and then right there. That's phone screen,
okay,
right?
and then,
So it's kind of the only other location we were thinking about is somewhere up there.
that's what I was thinking,
Okay.
somewhere in that area.
And we have water, I mean, we can just bring a hydrant over there, that's easy. Cause that, obviously, that's all open asphalt area, so I guess you could park there. There
Right.
and up there.
And it gives us kind of a little bit of a 360. Is there any? Where the existing DPW is?
Right,
Is there
There,
anything?
there's the one hydrant that we still need the hydrant flow test on.
right. It's by the gas building,
Oh,
gas
yeah.
regulator.
That's good.
Right,
So that's the one there. There is that subsurface
right, that gives.
fire protection tank, but I don't know if that's still in service or not.
I don't think so.
So that's the only, there's a hydrant there, and then there's one over there as well.
Where's the other one? Sorry.
It's by the
Oh,
driveway.
Right, there's one that's coming up the hill.
Right.
That one is definitely in service, cause we use that.
I guess the only
don't-
question would be, Taylor, if we need to put one down by the salt shed area.
Oh, we do have one there as well.
Oh, we do have
We have a lot of hydrants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe, I think it's 106. I don't know. Yeah, so we have another one right there. So we actually brought down just a lead from the existing main, because the salt shed's there is also the fire department garage that's there. So we figured it'd be good to have one there and just for more access to the west side of the DPW building. And then I guess the only other one that I had a question about was kind of by the, if you want to flip back over to. So down here, we have a transformer and generator. Do you need, would you need this to be 20 feet if you needed access around them? We have that, I think it just says 12 right now. It's more like just a maintenance road, honestly.
Yes, from the other side?
Yeah,
It's, currently the plan is that generator is gonna be a natural gas fire.
right. No,
But you can't.
but I have,
This way,
do we,
it's a straight shot to the generator, isn't it?
right, it's a straight shot. We're kind of in
On that
between
side,
the
yeah.
two buildings. I wouldn't put any vehicle in between here.
In between the bed and the building. Yeah,
And it's a.
Yeah.
it has a width, but it's just next to the building. And again, we obviously do have this hydrant here, so I don't know if the truck needs to get up in that area, but. You want to consider that.
Yeah, let me look at this, I know it's a 12-foot wide,
Mhm.
I can't imagine that we would. Need to get back there, but
Okay,
especially if we can get in that way.
yeah, I think that's it for my questions. Yeah, certainly, once you review the plan a little bit more, if you have anything else, just. Let us know, we should be able to adjust some things.
I guess I do want to bring up too, we have Jared Birmingham, on the line as well, who's our fire and like safety lead. I don't know, Jared, do you have anything that you wanted to ask while we have the fire department chief here?
No, I mean, I think Taylor's walking through all the questions that we have. I don't have any specific questions right now, but doesn't mean I won't come up with some as we get going.
Okay,
Because maybe do we wanna just go over, Jared, if we just wanna go over a quick summary of our current life safety plan and what we're looking to do with the fire protection in the buildings?
Sure. Do you want to just use this site plan here?
sure.
I mean, it may make sense to give more of an overview of what's in each of the buildings first. Has that already been kind of done?
No, we already kind of just started here, so.
Okay, well, I mean, I can give just a general overview. We've really only got one building that has fire protection in it, and that's the treatment building. And we have has an H occupancy in it based on maximum allowable quantities being exceeded for corrosive fluids. Which is, triggers our sprinkler system in this building. So the treatment building has a sprinkler system and a fire alarm system that's monitoring it, notification, manual pull stations. I believe we only have a detector at the panel. And that's really all we have for building fire protection. The operations building does not have a sprinkler or fire alarm system, and the salt shed does not either. And just, I guess the other trigger for the treatment building is just based on, geez, what is it? NFPA. I forgot the name. The wastewater treatment NFPA evaluation identifies the specific hazards that exist in these different rooms based on the processes and then the protection criteria for it. So that actually is what triggers our fire alarm for this building as well. So that's in a nutshell, that's what we have. I guess if we're talking about locations of, hydrants and such, it's probably worth just bringing up where we would have the access point to the building where the fire alarm panel would be, as well as, where our fire department connection would be for the sprinkler system.
Right.
Because right now those are right in the top left corner of that treatment building. The electrical room is in the far left. Which is where the panel would be, and then next to that room really is where our incoming water supply is. And I mean, really, we don't have the fire department connection located quite yet. But if there's any preference on that, that would be this would be a good time to get that feedback.
So that front left would be where we would want it, because we're gonna come in based on where we would come in to the building.
Yep.
We don't wanna have to drive all the way around the building to get to it, so, based on where we're gonna come in, it should be located in that, I would look at that front left corner.
In here, I don't want to scroll through too many drawings, but I think we can get to a better view.
Lauren, I'm looking at FS 10005.
Oh wait, that's one. So that's that top left corner.
FS 10005. The page is deeper.
It's actually
Way deep.
Actually, here I'm gonna.
There's no detail, it's just the location.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, so right in that corner is fine. I'm assuming the sprinkler room will be right there too.
So I believe the room that's sprinklered is the chemical room, right, in the center?
full building.
Oh, the
The
full.
full building, but usually there's a sprinkler room where it rises off of it.
Yeah, I think that riser, Jared, I think that riser is gonna be in the corner of the blower room.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're headed, but we haven't we need to internally coordinate that. But yeah, that's for the plan.
So we don't actually have a dedicated room for it. It's gonna be in the corner of a room with other equipment in there.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
But we have access to it.
Yes, you will have access to it.
Okay. All the shut offs. The inspector's valve,
Yep.
the main drain.
Yeah, we'll put all that stuff in that corner of that room, right? Jared?
That's correct.
Is it shown on any of these drawings yet or not yet?
It's just a box out on that FS
Just a
one
box.
oh five.
Yeah, that's correct. We have not put it in here yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess Dave or Jared, any other questions, so. Who's gonna bring up, or?
Just one thing, because it wasn't mentioned, so we're looking at storing 3 chemicals in bulk tanks here. We're going to have, sodium hydroxide, 25%. Polyaluminum chloride, which is used for phosphorus precipitation, and a product called Micro C, which is a glycerin-based supplemental carbon system, which is used for, denitrification, enhancing denitrification of biological process. And we can get, SDSs and provide that to you for review if you would like.
Okay, yep.
Anything on your end?
One more, we will have sodium hypochlorite, but that's just gonna be in 55-gallon drums,
Okay,
so.
yeah, if I can. Get all those so that I can. Figure out what the
Yeah.
quantities and what it's,
The largest bulk tank is the sodium hydroxide, which is gonna be about 6,000 gallons, and the other 2 are gonna be about 2,000.
And then the center room right here.
Yeah, correct.
and that's similar to what Holmes has. Do they have the same chemicals or?
I would have to check on that.
Yeah, they
Okay.
have working lines.
Similar process, but
Right.
we'd have to change.
Been up there.
Okay, anything else on that? And then we'll maybe continue on with Taylor's.
Yep, all set over.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Thanks for
Thank you, Jared.
jumping on. If there's any other questions later, we'll keep you posted. There's probably good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jared.
So I guess if we wanna go over, just the overall site plan and layout changes, and I don't think we need to go over that anymore. We had set up a little differently, earlier on in the year, and then, based on some feedback from the town, we switched around the buildings, trying to get them farther away from Old Orchard Road. Based on potential noise, traffic and border concerns, so that's why we have our buildings towards the west, more towards the rail trail. So I guess, Taylor, do you wanna go over, you wanna start with, yard piping, utilities, or?
Sure, I guess we can talk about the sand beds, this place. So we also try to take the sand beds and keep them, closer to the west side of the site. They're obviously not going to be really above grade, so it'll just be, open sand beds, pits, whatever you wanna call them. So we have the 5 main beds, obviously more towards the center of the site. Bed 1 is just north of the operations building. And then distribution box is also there. And then bed 6 is up at the north side, looking at the geotech, that area does have a considerable amount of fill. So we will be looking at that. We may have to over excavate in that area and replace with cleaner fill, to make sure, the beds function, but that is bed 6, so I guess we'll call it the last one. One thing with the sand beds, of course, I mean, they're about 90,000 square feet, so it is a considerable amount of cut material. The majority of the material on site, from what we've seen, is, nice, clean sand, which much of this area is, so. But that is something that I think we'll have to talk about more, is that, earthwork and how much material we're taking out, because one thing with this site, it's a large site, but we can't really lose all of that fill, because we need to maintain, as we kind of talked about, like that, the functionality of the DPW site, make sure they have enough space to store everything that they have, things like that. So that's still an ongoing thing that we're looking at, is, can we lose some more of that cut material, and what exactly to do with that? One area that we're obviously looking to lose some of it is in the stormwater basin, which is just north of the buildings. That is sized, to accommodate 100-year storm, but also, I believe, in their early process, it wanted to accommodate the 50-year storm in, I believe, 2070. So looking at the future there. One thing with this, though, is this site really doesn't have like a true outlet, overflow outlet. So what we're doing for sizing that is, trying to oversize it as much as we can. Being like the low point on the site, everything will slowly make its way there. If it starts filling up with sand, we just want to make sure we have a little bit extra volume there as well, in the design. I know I'm kind of just moving now slowly to stormwater, but in the far left side, we are trying to incorporate some smaller BMPs, in addition to this just large basin that's there now. So we do have 2 smaller stormwater areas, but we are also utilizing leaching basins throughout the site as much as we can to try to just drain as much of the stormwater we can, and really not have much on the surface if we don't need to.
Is one thing to add, Taylor,
Sure.
that a lot of the sheet flow on this site that's gonna end up in that pit is also coming from the transfer station. Since that's kind of the lowest point between the DPW.
Right. Yeah, it's a significant amount of water. As you can see next to the SBR, you will see 2 lines of pipes. Which may, seem like overkill, but really wanted to get as many structures there as we can. They will fill up with sand, obviously, at some point. And that's, I think, about 3 or 4 acres of tributary area going down to that area from the transfer station. So we want to make sure, we have 2 pipelines that will just get it into that basin where it goes now, or the pit area. And then one thing, I guess, going back a little bit to that DPW area, so in talking with John, and I believe Kim had some input on that as well. I think they needed about 25,000 square feet, so pretty large amount of area. What we've done is, in that far left side, you'll see from 30 to now, we expanded that quite a bit, to try to get enough room for basically trying to match what areas DPW had now, and try to make sure they have enough area to store all their equipment, stockpile areas, materials, things like that. Otherwise, doing some repaving here, we're kind of taking another look at what areas we can just replace just asphalt, what areas can we possibly just make gravel, try to keep that pervious area throughout the site. But at the same time, we also want to make sure, we have stable surfaces for the large tractor trailers coming in, dropping off materials, removing the sludge, and obviously the fire department as well. So that was a lot. I guess, any questions initially?
Yeah, is the size of the stormwater basin mainly driven by the asphalt, the paving, the added impervious?
I mean, our infiltration rates are, being sand, we're up in that 8 inches per hour. I mean, certainly adding any impervious would affect it, but at the same time, since the effluent beds are kind of, I've been calling them like self-contained, where they're going to drain themselves anyway. It doesn't turn out to be that much area. It's more just that like we don't have any sort of outlet besides infiltration. Yeah, I mean, we've tried to kind of look at making some areas gravel, like for instance, the DPW area in the far left is entirely gravel. The little maintenance road along the property line on the bottom is all gravel until you get to about the transformer generator.
Yeah, it sounds like you have close to about 4,000 tons of mix on the site, based on the cost estimate, kind of back into that, but it seems like, you know, if that can be reduced, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we can take a look, even making maybe just a parking in the gravel and. Cause that'll just help with drainage as well, but we'll look into that for sure.
And last time, I think we talked about perhaps a retaining wall by bed number 6, looks like you're able to create it without a retaining wall.
Yes, so, actually, that gravel access that goes down into the pit now. We kind of try to more or less maintain that, and then. What we've done is just raised it up in between bed 1 and bed 6, so the slope. Basically going from the DPW building down into the pit is very gradual until you get past. Kind of the bed 1 is where it would drop down, and it's really just for. You know, a backhoe to get down there if it ever needs to or something like that, but right now we don't have any retaining wall in that area. We have 3-to-1 slopes going down to the basin. And then there's also just like a maintenance shelf on the basin before it drops down again. The only retaining walls I believe we have right now are by the SBR building, which just was a result of having to slope down the transfer station, but also maintain those finished floors. And then I think we're considering one along that west property line, but we may be able to adjust the grading a little bit to potentially get rid of it. But they're not like, 10, 15 feet, they're, 6 to 8 feet, give or take.
A little busy, but this is.
Yeah.
the grading plan that Taylor's talking about. So that's this is that roadway.
Right.
Kind of shelf leading down.
And so, yeah, those are 3-to-1. It may look like there's just a lot of lines on it, but, and then the roadway's at 2% cross slope, so. Not very steep there. But that's another area we're trying to lose fill in as well, is just raising up the gravel access road down there.
Do you consider a gravel road to be pervious? I mean, if a sub basin or really,
I'd say like partially pervious. I mean, it's like the curve number is a little higher, but it's in reality, it drains if you put in, not fully compacted base stone, basically.
yeah.
But you don't consider it as pervious as grass, you could say. So,
But more pervious than paved.
sure, right.
Well,
Sometimes.
in a real downpour, is it really in the water will shoot off, it seems like, when if it's,
Right.
if it's more, the more pervious it is, the more mushy it gets and when it gets saturated.
Mhm. We're going with pretty, I think our gravel pavement is 10, 12 inches, so. Quite a bit of gravel, but we are also just relying on sheet flow here. We're not necessarily relying on. Sending it to a gravel area and letting it drain. Yeah. So it would sheet flow off into the sand, topsoil areas as well.
Taylor, would there be any benefit to using the,
Grass pavement.
yeah, well, grass pavers or even that material conjoined with gravel fill?
Or,
I think so.
how about pervious concrete?
Pervious asphalt to the use.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's. In my experience, that's more of like a maintenance headache, having to vacuum that out, especially
Oh,
here with all
yeah.
the sand, right?
Keep it from
It
getting
just
clogged.
gets in and then it's very expensive. The pavers is. I guess easier to maintain for one, but I think a little more effective as well, because you can kind of just. Vacuum out the gravel that's in there, replace it. things like that, but the impervious concrete's a lot harder. Over the years, it's like, it's just harder to get the actual sediment out of the voids that's in there and then it just turns into pavement. So generally, if they're at like a low point, the opposite doesn't work out. Yeah, I mean, we could look at grass pavers. I guess that's probably a cost consideration, but,
I have a bias from past experience for paved asphalt,
okay.
and personally, just for the trucks and
Right.
maintenance, long-term maintenance. And you said there's not a whole lot of it, so.
Right, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, there's not a whole lot, it's like, it's all there for a purpose, I would say, We may even have too much parking for what we're showing now, but the asphalt's there either existing asphalt basically, or for chemical deliveries, fire access. The large amount by the transfer station, that's already asphalt right now, we're just repaving it to put in stormwater and regrading, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, I think this gravel road would be new. This part of this road's actually already here. I mean, this is around where the salt shed is right now. So I mean, it's really all paved or gravel throughout here.
Mhm.
I think this is where the metal recycling is. It's right about here, right? So yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot new. So,
That area down there is pretty wide, I think it measures close to 60, 70 feet, right?
To the right of the
Yeah,
SPR,
That's pretty large area, that's where I think it's coming from, a lot of it.
but like the new asphalt,
Middle asphalt, right, that's one.
that is asphalt now though also.
But I mean, I think looking at your numbers on the cost estimate,
Oh, just for my cost.
yeah,
Okay.
cost- I mean, I don't have the quantities, but basically just look at, you have almost 800,000.
Right.
Simple math, $200 per ton, you're looking at 4,000 tons.
Mhm.
That's fair, it's a big chunk of asphalt.
Right,
It's a big site for sure, but you look at the access road along the two beds up top there.
Mhm.
Maybe that could be reduced to gravel. I mean, how often do you use it now, right?
yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of, is the fire department okay with like gravel surface just?
So if I have to put the ladder truck out, the outriggers can't be on organic material,
Okay,
cause I don't wanna flip the ladder truck. If I have to put the outriggers out, because if I put the ladder out,
It's off
and the
balance.
weight, it's off balance. It really kind of needs to be on, stable. Ground,
right.
or else we can't put the ladder up. if
Mhm.
needed.
So yeah, that's why that is asphalt. The one by the SBR. We had to do a lot of regrading there because we're sloping away from the building and just because that water, I haven't necessarily seen it in a giant storm, but I'm sure it comes down there pretty quick. We can look at refining it a little bit and maybe cut off that kind of where it juts back out towards the bays there. And then I guess potentially along the property line, we may be able to do that in gravel as well, as long as that doesn't need to be fire access. So we can look into that.
right here.
Right. But yeah, I think once we get into those large quantities too, it's like, there's the estimate and then there's like a company putting in that much asphalt, so
Yeah.
hopefully there would be, some cost difference there.
Because as far as civil site layout, stormwater, fire department access, are there any other questions? Anything else you want to know, Taylor?
I think now there are some like specifics in the question log, but I don't know. Something like that. So.
I do have, maybe we can break, maybe I'll do question log, I'll add that, yeah.
Okay.
Just one last thing on this, you have good separation of groundwater here, right, pretty much? I don't think it's.
Right, I think it's at.
Yes, actually, we have copies of the geotech report with us. I didn't upload the SharePoint last night, but we did get the.
And I believe it's at 14, so if you're looking at like our stormwater basin, it'll be. I think 5 feet below the ground, below the bottom of the basin, I believe.
So from existing grade, let's say the current BPW site, you have 14 feet of water.
Yeah, I think it's elevation 14. I believe.
Elevation.
Right. So I think existing grade where the beds are is generally like 36 right now, so. We do have a geotech report as well.
Yes, I'm looking here, soil pouring one, elevation 40 and they counter groundwater. At 27 feet below grade, so elevation, groundwater should be around elevation 13.
So that should be even below the concrete, the basement, right?
Correct. SBR, to give you an idea, the SBR tanks have an invert of elevation 20. And I think the wet well on the influent pump station is gonna be around elevation 15.
That's pretty good. That's the,
Anything else?
I think I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay.
Ron.
I think I actually might have had the geotech report discussion in another spot as well, so. We can cover that again. I guess in the essence of time, we can go on next to process design. I'll turn that over to Dave. I don't know if you wanna kind of go over the basic process flow and check out profile first, I'll close in that. That's that.
We also skipped that 30% review section too.
Oh, yes.
Just to remind you.
I was gonna put that towards the end. We've got the list and honestly, we didn't get our responses back fully, from on the Excel sheet that Apex sent. I was gonna cover that a little bit later, but we can have that. I can bring that up. That wasn't gonna be as.
Any more specific questions for the fire department?
I think we're good if you need to go.
I'm good for right now.
Hello.
I'm good, yeah, so,
Some alarm goes off.
right, so
Yeah.
if they need me, they know how to reach me, so.
Okay.
No, we appreciate you being here. Definitely it kind of. Another meeting.
Well, thank you for the invite, I just,
Not trying to pick you up.
no,
Oh, I did want to ask, I know Julia, from our civil team is on, just, I'm sure she'd speak up, but if you have anything, Julia, feel free to let us know, please, go over the process.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, like I said, next process design, we wanna start going over that, Dave? Oh, what was the drawings?
The process flows diagram there is on MP 602. It's about that close.
And I was wondering, I was like, I'm gonna probably go ahead and order them.
602.
Oh, it's very small, online, guys, sorry.
Well, if you just want to zoom in at the kind of the top left there and kind of walk through. So just kind of starting out here, we're gonna have the influent wastewater coming in, we're gonna have an influent composite sampler pulling the a sample from the wastewater prior to any recycles inside the plant. We're gonna have it running through two channels. There's a manual screen for cleaning, and then there's gonna be a mechanically clean bar screen, 1/4 inch openings. Downstream from that, we're gonna flow into a vortex grit unit. There's gonna be a bypass around that for if you need to take that out of service. 2 pumps serving the grit pumps, so that's gonna pull the grit from the vortex grit unit, pump it through the grit classifier, that'll dewater the grit and put it into a container to be hauled to the transfer station site for disposal, ultimate disposal there. And from the grit vortex unit will then discharge into the influent wet well. We're gonna have 3 pumps at startup and 4 pumps ultimately at phase 2. They're gonna discharge into a force main. That force main will then feed into the SBR reactors. And as this is being a phase project, we're putting in, it's gonna ultimately be a 3-basin SBR system. Right now, we're only going to have internals in 2 of the 3 SBRs. And the 3rd SBR will be used in the interim as a pre-equalization basin. So this way, if you have high flows, and rather than going into storm mode like a typical aqua aerobics SBR would do, we can divert that into the pre-equalization basin and then just pump it back into the system when you float up and down.
That was a quick point I wanted to kind of speak to a little bit. So that's the intent, is to focus that flow on the 2 primary SBRs, and that EQ is only there for that higher flow scenario.
Correct.
Okay, because when I was looking at that design, just a couple of things jumped out. One, if we were gonna be using it regularly, were there any additional considerations needed to H2S in that tank, and anything that we did if we were gonna be using that regularly for any reason? And then when I was looking at the coarse bubble versus fine bubble diffusion there, just knowing that we're proposing some coarse bubble maybe on the front end. Okay, don't put too much oxygen in there. We don't want to get denitrification, things of that nature. But also, at some point in theory, you'd be converting that over. So just thinking about some costs and converting from fine bubble to the coarse, and the coarse bubble back to fine bubble, should you want to end up putting those online. So that was just a question and kind of like a consideration of that piece, if we think it's really going to be, needed and warranted.
Yeah, so I guess just to address some of those questions, the coarse bubble is really mostly for mixing at this point at the pre-equalization, but once used as a pre-equalization basin. And yes, there will obviously be cost to, convert that over to fine bubble. The other thing too is because we are looking at doing the odor control with covers, because typically an aqua aerobics SBR has a retrievable diffuser rack, but with having covers for odor control makes that difficult to do a retrievable diffuser rack. So we will be using a fixed floor diffuser in the SBRs. So the pre-equalization basin will also be there for if you have to take a basin out of service. So that you can direct flow into the pre-equalization basin, get into the SBR to be able to change out diffusers if you need to.
And that, envisioning that as a really short period of time, because I thought about that same approach and said, well, wouldn't it then make sense to be having fine bubble diffusion there, acknowledging that it's primarily there for mixing, but do you just reduce your run times on fine bubble and then eliminate the need to have the coarse bubble? And you're kind of eliminating those costs, and should you need to take a basin down and convert there, you're then using fine bubble air diffusion to keep the biomass viable.
So you're basically just saying go fine bubble from the start.
I'm just putting it out there as something that, because on the surface, and the way I thought about it originally was as you're getting to the flows, that would be utilized more. But in hearing the description a little better, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Focus on 1, 2, maybe it won't really be utilized. But then if we're talking about it then from being able to take a basin down, then I lean even more towards maybe just go fine bubble diffusion to start with. And as long as you have time and the ability to control your air there, and not create an environment that's too aerobic before we introduce to the SPRs, I think you could still probably do next thing.
When you say cost, can you define cost to make that conversion? Is it like material, not material? I mean, what's the number?
So I think kind of the cost is obviously, if you put in coarse bubble diffuser now, and we have the coarse bubble diffusers, you're gonna have to, go out and maybe when you go to phase two, you're gonna have to take those old coarse bubbles out. They're gonna get scrapped. They're only gonna have to put in a new fine bubble diffuser system. So, kind of like that coarse bubble diffuser system kind of goes, it'll go away when you go to phase two. So the question here is if we just put in the fine bubbles from the start, and then we don't have to change them out in the future.
Well, for cost perspective, I think we'd have to
Yeah.
check out the aqua aerobics, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a, earth shattering by any means. And I guess just a reminder for everyone in the room too, originally when the project started, the phase one and phase two flows were kind of half and half. So originally we were gonna have 4 SBRs, 2 and 2, so we were literally just gonna build the 2 now and then leave 2 in the future. But once, Apex put the collection system together, the town worked out, what the flows actually would be, it was more of a 2/3 and a third.
Right.
So that's why we ended up going with, 3 tanks. We figured, Commonwealth construction, we'd build them all now. That's what, that way when you need to, add flow in the future, you'd already have all the tankage, it would just be adding or changing out equipment. Makes sense. So. I
Just an
know-
item for consideration, that's all.
Yeah.
Also the pre-equalization basin is gonna be used for the carbon units. The carbon units, when they start up, they need an initial backwash. So we're gonna actually have that pre-equalization tank and also be the preceding backwash from the carbon units. That just eliminates the need to put in a separate equalization basin.
Sure.
So, the part of the other thing too is the equalization, once we actually get online with carbon units, kind of get a feel for how often they need to be backwashed, how often the needed carbon beads to be replaced. Then we can look in the future, if we need to, look at putting in a separate backwash equalization basin. So the SPR basins, they're gonna be, base of the design is an aqua aerobics 4-cycle per day SPR. I've had great luck with them as far as getting nutrient removal and nitrogen reduction. One I put back in a few years ago in Pennsylvania, we routinely get total nitrogens on the order of 2. So, very good, well-performing system. Having the supplemental carbon feed, that's gonna help with the denitrification. The polyaluminum chloride, will be helping with the use for the phosphorus precipitation. It's just a little note there, we're gonna be putting in sodium hydroxide for the alkalinity supplementation now, so. By far the largest use of chemicals, that's why we got a 6,000 gallon bulk tank for that. Sludge from the equalization basins, we wasted to two sludge holding tanks. From there, the plan is to liquid haul it offsite for disposal. Downstream of the SPRs, you're gonna discharge into a post equalization tank. That post equalization tank will then pump to the cloth media disc filters. Having that post equalization tank allows us to reduce the size of the downstream unit processes. With an SPR, because they decant at a high rate, so the it flows in, it's a batch process. So the flow flows into the SPR at a relatively low flow rate, does its biological process thing, settles, and then you decant clear water off the top. During that decant cycle, you could be on the order of 1,000 gallon per hour or 1,000 gallon per minute on the decant, while you might be filling at 100 GPM. So by sizing that EQ tank downstream, we can keep the downstream unit processes much smaller size. Otherwise, we would have to size it to handle the peak decant rate.
Dave, could I pause on one moment?
Yes.
Excuse my question if when we're gonna get into some more detail in some of the later stages, but just thinking on the sludge thickening side of things, and some of our analysis looking at whether it warranted any additional thickening on site, the odor generation, cost of equipment, the O&M, I know those are all significant versus, I'd say, following a certain percentage of predominantly water off-site. Any discussion around that? And also the, confines of the site and everything else.
So I think, obviously the disposal of biosolids and wastewater treatment solids in the New England region has been a rapidly evolving topic of discussion.
Fair.
So when we initially started this design project, the design assumption we would be, turning off the air and letting the sludge in the tank settle, and then you could decant off there. So we were looking at like decanting off the sludge holding to be able to thicken it up before hauling it off site for liquid. So I guess we are kind of looking at options for disposal. I know I have another client here that is going through some other issues with their solids disposal, so we are keenly aware of that situation. So we're looking into things.
Yeah, that's honestly something maybe if you've got experience right now with some of the other locations that you operate.
It certainly can be a challenge as you start to get into the higher solids concentrations in biosalt, that's absolutely, and, additional time on site, upfront costs for the equipment, the maintenance for the equipment, and if there's odors, that's usually either there or up on the front end of the plant, so it just creates another opportunity there. So sometimes I'm not a huge advocate of going for that, not in all cases, but it's just something for consideration.
Yeah. So there will be odor control on the headworks and the sludge holding tanks. That is certain for certain. That will be in the base pit. Downstream, the cloth media disc filters, it's then going to go through granular activated carbon filtration. And that's for TOC removal, as we are in a wellhead protection area. And then downstream of the carbon, then we're going to have ultraviolet disinfection, and then it will be then discharged to the sand beds for groundwater filtration. So that is an overview of the process.
For the brick removal, the dumpster that's dumping in, is that inside or outside?
Inside the building.
Okay.
The screenings dumpster and the grit dumpster are going to be inside the building.
And there is a washer compactor on the
Yeah.
screen as well. Any other questions? We'll move over next.
Why don't you do just a quick overview of the hydraulic profile? It's like MP2. Performance. Yeah. So yeah, this is just a brief overview of the just kind of the process, how it looks in the vertical hydraulic profile. So, obviously, unfortunately, we have to do a lot of pumping between phases just to make everything work with the site layout. So we're there, it's kind of looking, we come in from the influent sewer, screening, grit removal, goes into the influent pumps that's pumped up into the SBRs or the EQ tank, as the case may be. EQ, the SBR is discharged from the post to the post EQ, and then gets pumped up to the disc filters. Disc filters, and then will go to a wet well fill the carbon units. It's just the nature of the size of the carbon units are actually quite tall, which is one of the driving factors for the building. And also just having to, deal with the pressure loss across the bed as they become fouled. And then after they discharge from the carbon units, they'll be through UV disinfection to, and then the effluent distribution into groundwater recharge. So.
I guess one thing, which I think this is kind of a good visual to understand, I know that Dave talked about how we're gonna have order control on the aerobic digesters and the headworks facility. And, we are putting covers on, or we're proposing to put covers on the SBRs, which, isn't necessarily a typical thing. So we are having two separate order control, maybe you're gonna get into this, Dave, probably, sorry. We are gonna have two separate odor control systems. Because it's essentially this headspace that will need to be treated. Which obviously is not insignificant from, phase one. So we're gonna have to make sure to treat the entire headspace of those tanks, from phase one and phase two. So I thought this was kind of a good visual to show how much air will need to be treated. I'll let you get back to it.
Okay. The problem when you design things too much, you start looking at it, and think, well, where do I even start? Just kind of overview, just kind of brought up the headworks, the equipment we're looking at. Of course, a mechanically clean screen. Now in the future, we're gonna have, well, currently for phase one, we're gonna have a single screen with a mechanical or a manual bypass. The idea is that in the future, phase two, we're gonna twin the screen so that the screen that we're actually putting in is sized for the phase two flows. Same with the grid system. Because we only have one grid system, so we're putting in it for phase two flows. The screen is actually gonna be sized for phase two flows as well. Because this is in, TR16, as soon as you go to multiple screens, you have to have 100% redundancy. So the idea is that in the future, we can put in a second screen, just twin the existing screen, give you additional redundancy, in the future. And that was just, the thought there. 1/4-inch screen with a washer compactor, that's gonna remove pretty much all of your large solids, your flushables, that kind of thing that would otherwise cause issues with and accumulate in the SBR basins. And then downstream of that, we're gonna be using the grits and the grit removal. Obviously, the concern is, the Cape, there's a lot of sand, and if that's gonna get into the sewer system and then into there, we don't want that accumulating in the SBRs as well. So the grit system, that'll then, we're gonna have a pair of grit pumps. It'll pump it to the grit classifier, dewaters that grit, sends it into the container. Now, I think we were looking at using like a 1 cubic yard tipping container type thing. An advantage here is that we do have the transfer station, immediately adjacent to the treatment plant site. So, just tote it over there and tip it in. And, with the odor consideration, it would be kind of a scheduling with that. So if you know that they're gonna be hauling out the trailer with the collecting municipal solid waste that day, you tip it over, dump it in that day so that it pretty much doesn't sit around on site, generating odors that would be objectionable to the general public. So, kind of moving then, we're gonna be putting in the sodium hydroxide will be fed into that influent force main coming off of the influent wet well, influent pumps there. That way it just gets distributed to the SBR it needs to. We're just kind of looking at some of the numbers. When we pulled the water data from town of Eastham, it looked like there was a relatively low alkalinity. So that's, obviously it's gonna be one of our bigger chemical uses there is the alkalinity, just to get it up to be able to drive the nitrification process.
Okay,
Yes.
what is the material you're gonna dump into the existing transfer station?
So that's gonna be the screenings and the grit. So the screenings is, it's gonna be, the wastewater is gonna run through a screen and it's gonna remove, the big issue recently has been all the flushable personal care wipes, like they're like baby wipes almost, that a lot of times get collected, flushed down the system. So that screen will remove all of the large kind of inorganic material that gets flushed down the collection system.
That gets caught in the headworks building.
Correct. The headworks building will remove those items.
So how long is it exposed to the, I guess it's
So-
a new order that I wasn't aware of.
Okay, so the screening building will be enclosed, so that's going to be, the material is gonna be removed from wastewater by the screen. There's gonna be the washer compactor, which will try to remove any organic material, separate out the organic material from the inorganic material. The organic material should largely get returned back to the treatment stream, to the wastewater stream. Then that inorganic material that got pulled out, it'll be put through the compactor section, which will dewater and dry out the product. Then that drier product will be deposited into a container. Now that container is gonna be inside the screen building itself. And then once that is full, it would get taken out and dumped over at the transfer station site. Now, depending on the scheduling, what I'm looking at with the scheduling is if that we know that a truck is going to be leaving the treatment or the DP or for the. Yeah. You have a truck leaving the transfer station that day, and you know that's gonna be going out that day, then the operators can remove the solids that have been accumulated in the screening building, which is odor controlled. They can dump it right into the trailer right before it gets hauled offsite.
So in the transfer station, since we're all familiar with that geography, where would this be?
So this is going to be, can you bring up the site plan?
That's where most of the population.
Regular trash.
Yeah,
regular
brings the
trash.
trash in, so just to know where it's gonna be.
It would be thrown into the big trash.
Correct.
Okay,
So these kind of alleyways where the
right,
rollbacks are.
okay.
So how are we dumping it in there then? Just out of curiosity.
So
Do we
these
have a
are,
machine that's gonna be able to do it for us?
well, these are typically, they're like a tipping cart that you pick up with a forklift.
All right, so there's gonna be a forklift at the plant then?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
So this corner of the building up here is where that headworks area is, so the screens, the material will be accumulated inside the building right here. And then when it's full, they just take it up here and dump it.
So it's a matter of like 100 yards or something.
Yeah. Correct.
And basically, it's great, what kind of volume we're talking about, and how many days between those? I'm not even.
Yeah, it really, honestly, it really varies upon what's coming down.
We're gonna do some educational campaigns.
Yeah.
The seasonality.
Yeah.
Huge,
Really important.
huge.
I mean, yeah, I think it really can depend, you know, it really can depend on, you know, I've been in places that have, you know, a problem with wipes because too many people flush, that just because they're flushable doesn't mean they belong in the sewer. So I think that's a, you know, a potential problem. And honestly, depending on how tight the sewer system is initially, and as things, you know, 20, 30 years, you might get more sand coming in.
From experience, from some of the bigger plants that I've done, it's usually you went them twice a week.
This is a fine screen though, right?
Correct,
Inch,
quarter
so
inch,
it's
yeah.
probably gonna generate a ton, you know.
It's gonna generate more
It's
than a
gonna
core
generate-
screen,
yeah.
well, yes.
More so, screening than, you know, from the grit, obviously, right? Because brand new sewer system, like you said, maybe less likely to have sand in the system at the beginning, so. Probably more screening than grit for sure.
Yeah.
But it smells, no question, right? Gotta smell.
Yes.
Does,
I,
does Orleans do this process too? Because I feel like in Orleans, they had the grit collected in
In a
just a
little
regular
trash
old
can.
trash can in a trash bag.
It was
Yeah.
like this big.
Yeah, there was no forklift operation, it was just
You know,
like hand hauled.
again, we'll know once we get like the.
I'm talking about the same
Yeah,
process.
it's the
Okay.
same.
You'd added something and we're like, oh geez, we didn't talk about that.
I've used like they're typically like a little, I've used on a lot of plants, I've used like it's a tipping bucket thing. It's about a yard capacity hopper that you pick up with a forklift.
Yeah.
You drive it over.
Was it
Trash
a
bag.
trash can and a trash bag?
And at startup, that might be all you need.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I worked at one plant that I worked at, and it was different wastewater, but they literally used a regular garbage can to collect the grit.
Yeah.
Then maybe it was like a 1 yard for the screenings, so it really depends, that was like probably 10 times the size of this plant, it was like 1.4 MGD.
and just by comparison, I am working on a project right now where they haul offsite 4 to 6 30 cubic yard dumpsters of screening and grit material a week. But that's also a 50 MGD pump station serving a combined sewer system. So,
There's a full range out there for
yes.
this. We operate many facilities where it's the trash bag model.
Yeah,
Very- very
that's the
simple.
model I think we're all
Valid,
familiar with.
valid question from Jim, thinking about the operators downstream and
Not
things like that. but-
Clifton Dolly is a deal breaker. It's not a surprise.
It's different.
Just in my experience too, the trash can for the grit is fine, but realize when that gets full, it's very heavy.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of our. So that's kind of some, that's kind of the headwork system in a general overview nutshell there. The SBR system, we're kind of discussed, it's the Aqua Aerobics 4 cycle per day. So that's designed for biological nutrient removal, primarily nitrogen. The chemical phosphorus precipitation, that's gonna be, will be at a point during the cycle, the chemical will be added to the wastewater and it'll react with the phosphorus. So the polyaluminum chloride, then it reacts with the orthophosphate, creates aluminum phosphate, which was insoluble, precipitates out of the wastewater, ends up into your waste sludge. And then when you waste out the sludge out of the system, then that gets rid of the phosphorus. Mentioned downstream, then we have post-equalization basin. That's gonna be sized to hold. Don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it was a minimum of 1 full decant. That's based on TR16 regulations. Then we're gonna pump there to the cloth media disc filters. So the cloth media disc filters, that's just a polishing step on that wastewater to remove any further particulate and suspended solids. That'll do twofold. That further reduces your effluent phosphorus because now you're removing any phosphorus containing sludge from the chemical precipitation process. And then also we just put that in there to keep your carbon units, try to keep those as clean as possible, extend the life of the carbon.
So how effective is the phosphorus removal? Would you say?
The treatment plant that I mentioned, they have a chemical phosphorus removal, and I believe they were under 0.1 milligram per liter total phosphorus. So,
For funds.
yeah. So, we're kind of looking at this, trying to, while we aren't exactly, we're designing this to essentially meet like some of the highest standards we can. But we're not necessarily kind of stating that in the design documents, just so we don't tie the town to a higher standard than we have to. But we're designing this to a very high standard treatment, so. So-
Looking, forward looking of
Yes.
what could have eventually come down on.
Yeah, we're exactly trying to look forward and just make sure that, we give you a system that's gonna be meeting the needs of today and hopefully in the future, and we can accommodate changes to regulations as they move forward. So the tertiary filtration downstream of those disc filters, then we're gonna have the carbon units. Those will be for the polishing units. We're gonna have 2 redundant systems with 2 vessels each, and those vessels are set up. Each vessel is set up that it can be run in parallel or in series. And we'll have 2 of those units in the operations building. UV disinfection, we're gonna have 2 non-contact UV systems. Right now, we're kind of looking at base of the design as Glasgow, non-contact UV systems. So, just kind of a difference with the UV systems. There's contact where you typically have the bulb is in a quart sleeve that's submerged in water. That's the water passes through it, the UV disinfection, UV light essentially denatures any bacteria, viruses, etc. So the can is unable to reproduce. And that's gives it disinfection action. Non-contact UV, you have the flow of the water is running through a translucent tube, and then you have the bulb outside, so the bulb's not actually in direct contact with the water. So we're looking at the non-contact UV system there, and then obviously we're gonna go to a distribution chamber. Now that distribution chamber, one of the reasons why it looks relatively oversized is that that's going to serve as both the distribution chamber and it's also the clear well for providing the backwash water for the carbon units And also it's gonna be the supply for the plant water. So the plant water, we're gonna take it off downstream of the downstream UV disinfection. We're gonna have a plant water system. We're gonna have put on a hypochlorite feed onto that. So we have a chlorine residual in the plant water. And that plant water is gonna be used for spray wash on for the influence screen, wash water for the washer compactor, any water we need for the grit system. Then we're also gonna be using it for irrigation on the odor control biofilters. And just for tank washing in general. So, that's kind of the overview of the main process there. Now, obviously sludge holding, we're looking at aerobic sludge holding with using decant for thickening it prior to liquid haul offsite for disposal. Of course, bubble diffusers with the cover tanks, odor control. And then so for the odor control, we're designing this based on using a biofilter odor control system. So, there's typically 3 types of odor control systems that are commonly used in wastewater treatment plants. You use a carbon, like an adsorber, like a carbon, or, sometimes there's, engineered medias that are for targeting specific compounds. One of the disadvantages to those two is that while they're, relatively usually the cheapest to install, they're also usually the most expensive to run because you have to replenish the media. The next one is a wet scrubber. Now, wet scrubbers are commonly designed around removing hydrogen sulfide. But part of the problem with the wet scrubber is that if you start having to remove, ammonia-based compounds, now you have to have a 2-stage system, multiple chemicals. You typically, I think a wet scrubber typically is like sodium hydroxide, sodium hypochlorite. But then a wet scrubber, then if you have a 2-stage and you're trying to remove ammonia, now you're starting looking at having hydrogen or sulfuric acid that you have to use for that wet scrubber process. So, obviously, while they're great for treating large volumes of air at a relatively economical price, there's the additional cost of chemicals that you have to feed in there and, the safety of those chemicals when you start talking about all the different acids that you have to have on site and stored. So, the third option is using biofilters. So biofilters they encourage growth of bacteria on a media carrier, and those bacteria will actually remove the odorous compounds from the airstream, metabolize them and remove them from the airstream, which is then discharged to the atmosphere after having been cleaned. So we're designing this with using a biofilter technology just so we can eliminate those safety hazards that you see with the wet scrubbers, eliminate the ongoing O&M that you would have with a dry scrubber. So the odor control systems, what we're doing is we're designing 2 separate systems. We're going to have one system which is going to handle just the aerobic sludge holding and the headworks area. So all that screening material, all the grit where those dumpsters will be contained right before their dumps, that's all going to be inside. Those are generally the highest odor producing levels of a treatment plant. So they're going to have a odor control system for that, odor control biofilter that will be in the base pit. So we're going to have the other odor control system will be serving the 2 sequencing batch reactors and the pre-equalization basin, which will become the future 3rd SBR. And that's going to be covered, and we're gonna have a biofilter there, and that's going to treat that, and that will be alternate number 1 on the bid. So that's what we are currently planning.
One thing to add to that I think came up at maybe it was the CPC meeting, that we will have the sludge hauling trucks connected into the area near the Headworks facility. So that would be included in that, initial stage of odor control.
And also adding to that, I think the question had come up, the concern about noise, and particularly the vacuum pumps that would have on a sludge loading station with the trucks. So the design intent is that the sludge transfer pumps in the basement of the treatment building will be pumping to the sludge hauling trucks, so that they won't need to use any onboard vacuum pumps or any pumps like that to haul sludge offsite.
So do you hear anything when this is happening, if you're outside the building?
During the sludge loading,
Yeah,
you're probably gonna hear the idling truck.
but that's it.
Now for the, influent headworks, is there a septic receiving?
We do not currently have a septic receiving station designed for this treatment plant.
Okay.
You know, if we need to receive septic, we can probably just put it into the manhole ahead of the plant, but the concern there would be, you know, I don't know if there's necessarily would be a concern for odor release there, but you know, if we're looking at something, if we need an interim to serve the community, you know, while they sewer the system, we can, you know, maybe if a standpipe outside the building running in.
I just didn't know if you're doing it for like a revenue source, you know, certain towns do take septic.
Right.
So I think we considered that in the beginning and
Orleans.
based on our experience going back 30 years with the old tri-town plant, regional efforts. Chatham has it, Barnstable has it, Yarmouth has it, I think Orleans has it.
Yes.
So, you know, it seemed kind of repetitive for us to do that.
Cost and potential odors.
Yeah.
Dave, something to consider, with the, covers for the tanks, we're thinking, and we will provide that as part of our comments. Could the covers be part of the base bid? And if we have to take them out, we could take them out by -2,000. That way, we're thinking that could keep the numbers somewhat competitive.
I think at the last CPC committee meeting, there was some discussion as to whether we wanted to have it as a, you know, if we wanted to have it as an add alternate or a deduct alternate off the base bid, and there was some discussion about that, and I think we could do it either way. You know, we just would need direction on if there's preferred.
However you do it, I just want to be able to clearly see the cost of it, all of it, through electrical and all pieces and parts. That I don't almost want to throw in any kind of maintenance in my cost as well.
So at least for the maintenance cost of the maintenance cost of the biofilters, there is a nutrient solution that needs to be fed periodically. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly how much it is. It's not significant, but using the plant water, the other big use for biofilters is water consumption. And since we are going to be using plant water for the biofilter for irrigation, there won't be any, you know, it's not going to be using potable water, so there won't be a bill for that. So, you know, it'll just be using treated effluent off of the treatment plant. And, you know, obviously no electrical uses, but that's what you're looking at for maintenance. And there will be periodically, like every 10 years, you might have to replace them. So.
And is there any kind of maintenance on the SBR tank that these covers would impact?
So the big issues with the SBR, we are gonna have hatches for there's two main pieces of equipment within the basin. There is gonna be a floating mixer, and then there will be a decanter. And we're gonna have hatches over top of both so that those can be accessed for periodic maintenance. The other maintenance that would be if you need to replace diffusers. So that's gonna require the tank to be drained because they're gonna be floor mounted. So the diffusers, the fine bubble diffusers, they're typically they're like a 9-inch EPDM rubber. And you just unscrew the ring and put the new one back on. But again, that would require the tank to be drained to access them. That's kind of one of the reasons why we're putting in the pre-equalization basin with with having two SBRs with the covers on them. And also, you know, in the future, when you have the 3 basin SBR, that gives you redundancy to be able to get into the basins to perform maintenance. You also can have solids accumulation in the SBRs. Part of the reason why we have the grit unit is just to try to reduce the amount of grit, the grit accumulation in the tanks, and also just the 1/4-inch screen is going to help prevent the introduction of, you know, large debris into those tanks that would eventually build up and have to be removed. So I mean, you know, probably looking at typically what they've seen on fine bubble diffusers is, you know, typically manufacturers give you what, 5 to 7 years expected life. And, depending on your diffuser flux, how much air you're running through, you can see longer, shorter. But, you're looking at probably a 5 to 7 year replacement interval on diffusers. So,
I know one of Jim's concerns was absolutely the access to mixing and the visibility on the decanter and those components. It's all clearly called out in the plans. The access for the mixers, not so much the rendering, but I understand we're not trying to get that detail. But then on the decanter, I hadn't seen that called out of the hatch, and I might have just missed that in my review, but just an important piece from an operator standpoint, access, troubleshooting.
yeah, we've been working with the cover manufacturers to get all this detailed and wrapped up, so. It's something that's still in progress, but there's gonna be hatches over the decanter and.
One of the other concerns is the snow removal. Not that we get a lot of snow, especially up here in Eastham. We're lucky on that aspect, but where to shovel off the walkways or snow below the walkways, where's the snow going? You're just pushing it basically from one end of the building to the other end and dumping it off the sides. Now, the hatch is gonna be snow rated and weight rated, save for that one heavy snowstorm that we may or may not get.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the numbers, what exactly we stated, but we are rating these they will be able to walk on the cover.
Okay, and what about putting equipment on the covers, such as maintaining the mixer? Are we gonna set up a tripod? Is there gonna be like safety brackets for the tripod to be hooked up to? Or how big is the tripod gonna have to be to get over the width of the hatch cover? Or the decanter also, I should say.
I have a question in the reverse that I was thinking of because I know it's a lot of, obviously the tank covers are controversial, but if it's open and we get a huge rain event or snow event, what does that do to the process of the SBRs? Do you have to add more chemicals? Does it dilute it? What does it do?
It would have to be a substantial event.
Yeah,
Even if you had.
like a normal rain would be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure if you had like a hurricane come up the coast and hit the treatment plant, it's really gonna make a difference. And at that point, you probably have more important things to worry about. So, cause even, just think about, the working volume on this SBR, the water level goes up and down. I think it's on the. Do we have
Yeah, we have that.
the hydraulic brake?
Yeah, we might want, I know we do have Ariel here from structural, so we might wanna jump to
In
that.
cold, how do we keep it all fine with cold?
So just kind of looking at here, like the low water level, on phase one is 34 feet elevation 34, with the high water level of elevation 39. So, in the course of a batch is, 5 feet of water. So, even if you had a foot of rain over the course of a day,
You still have room.
there's still plenty of room in there, and it's not significantly going to impact the process.
Okay. I just wondered whether fresh, like rainwater or whatever is in rainwater now would affect it.
Well, extended periods of cold temperature or freezing of the mist or.
Yeah, how does that happen? How do we keep them from
Freezing,
forming ice? Yeah.
So one of the advantages is that wastewater is typically coming in at somewhere around 50 and 55 degrees, so it's usually not a problem.
Okay.
So,
So the wastewater itself starts to
yeah,
mitigate the temperature.
Yeah, the wastewater.
Interesting.
yeah, wastewater itself will provide some heat.
Okay.
That is actually one of the things that we are doing is we're using actually on the, I know I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit, but on the operations building, we're gonna be using a heat exchanger to use the wastewater stream treated effluent there to actually use that as a heat sink for heat pumps in the operations building. So sort of like a geothermal. We're not going to take it out of the. Yes, I think, yeah.
I was just wondering, what's the typical removal method for the covers? And should there be rigging points on it and something designed?
So removal of the covers, that's, obviously we're gonna have to look at the panel weights and, think about that as far as what the plans for removing those for access.
what are they, what's the material, what are they made of?
So we're using a FRP, fiber reinforced plastic cover.
They got a life cycle time on, the sun will be a UV.
Yeah, it's UV stabilized and, this stuff should last, a good long period, probably I would just hesitate to guess, probably in excess of 4 years. So, this is not something that, we'll probably have to worry about, in any of our careers here. So,
To John's point, is there an alternative? Is it better to have rigging points that you remove a whole cover or sections of a cover?
Well,
versus access holes?
well, how the cover of the system that I'm looking at uses like FRP planks. So it's not like a huge mono cover. It's not you're removing it all in one piece. You will be taking off a plank and moving it over. So if that helps, that's kind of what you're thinking there. It's not like on another project I'm currently working on that's just going into construction. We're constructing anaerobic digesters that have 80-foot diameter steel covers that weigh about 300,000 pounds. So, this is gonna be much more, reasonably sized scaled, the FRP panels, and we can definitely figure out what the weight is on those panels. And if we need to make, specify a maximum panel weight, we can do that so that it's probably could be even specified as like a 2 people can lift up a panel to move it. So,
Now, is there gonna be a port for sampling to be able to put a dipstick in there to? get
yeah,
the-
there'll be access
Okay.
hatches. There'll be more access hatches than just over the mixer and over the decanter. We'll have, more man-sized hatches that you can actually get into to access. So. And as far as the support, we can definitely, we're looking at the span. We are going to need to have some intermediate beams and supports. So we can definitely accommodate that. We're putting in, if we need to put in additional beams in an area so that you can set up a tripod, we can definitely do that, make a designated access points. But this tank will also be, and this is maybe also another point for the fire department, is that these tanks will be, 25 feet deep with a cover on them. So that's gonna be, it's gonna be definitely a confined space,
Absolutely.
so.
So what's that mean? Need fire suppression?
Well, no,
Higher safety.
It's,
Safety.
yeah, it's safety. We would, if something were ever to happen to someone that's in the tank inspecting it, it would be
A rescue.
a tech rescue team activation. We don't have anybody that is confined space. We have enough manpower for the department for a confined space rescue.
and I think that would even without the covers, I think that would still be,
25 feet is
Absolutely.
pretty deep.
yeah.
It's pretty good. It's not like you can put a ladder down.
No,
So it's definitely a tech rescue.
tough rescue.
Do any
Yeah.
of our neighbors have the tech rescue too?
So we have a countywide tech rescue team that we would have to call out, but that also is time and labor intensive. So to get everybody here from all of Cape and Islands to be able to effect a rescue.
So we need to make sure nobody falls in the tank,
Correct.
period.
I think that's pretty typical, not all, departments have that capability.
Correct.
It's usually one
The
specific.
bigger city departments do, but I know Plymouth County has their own tech rescue team, Cape Islands has their own. So,
I guess my only other question on that for in God forbid, the tech rescue team, is that little back road that's only 12 feet wide, should that actually be wider? Or set up for a ladder truck or something back there, if you have to do a rescue? I mean, again, it's a worst case scenario, I know, but.
right, I think as long as we have, some area in the front
To
that we
reach,
can set up. I don't envision us putting a ladder truck out on that back road. Just because of the weight and the width of that,
Yep.
truck.
And that ladder goes out, it has a good space.
75, we're at 75 feet out that we can,
That
as long as we
hang
can
right
put the
over it.
stabilizers out.
okay.
Is anything else on process design before we'll go to structural design for the next 15 minutes before lunch? It's here. We always come back, no processes.
I can't think of anything, but feel free to ask me any questions and I'll get you an answer or I'll either get you an answer now or get you an answer later.
Okay, so we do still have. So we do have Ariel from our structural team on. I guess we'll get into structural design. So as you know, we just got our draft geotechnical memo out this week, actually yesterday. We got that from the team. And I do believe the structural team have been looking at it, you know, they had been looking at the boring logs, you know, we had a good handle on most of the site is sand, which was good. So I guess if, you know, I'll be honest, I was on vacation last week, so I didn't fully look through it yesterday. But if there's anything specific we want to talk about or look at that. I do believe the majority of it was sand. There was maybe one location where the soils weren't quite as good, but it was nowhere we were actually putting a structure.
Well, I think Lauren, the one spot was, I think at the corner where where the treatment building was gonna be, but the objectionable material is
Oh, yes,
above the footer, so that's gonna all get torn out anyway.
good point, yep.
I think I was on SB3. There was an area of low flow counts that was about 8 feet below the soil, I think. But that's well within our area of excavation, so we're gonna be, you know, all the buildings are gonna be founded on, you know, competent native soil.
So I guess the one thing from a design criteria, and then we'll look at some of the structural layouts. I think it was brought up at the CPC meeting about the solar panel consideration, so I think we had talked about some previous meetings that it'll have the standing seam roof. It will be able to accommodate the weight of any future solar panel, and I believe we are still looking at the potential to put any equipment in that mezzanine, that second floor, Dave.
Oh, yes, there's that second floor mezzanine over the headworks. It's done partially to reduce the volume of the headworks that we have to odor control, because that's gonna have to be ventilated at 12 air changes per hour. The space over top of the mezzanine, we're gonna have some partition, also space. We're gonna probably have the control panels for the headworks equipment in that space, a lavatory, and I think some of the heating equipment for the treatment building, but that's kind of what we're looking at, putting in that second floor mezzanine.
There. I guess, Ariel, anything that you wanted to add on any of that, and I'll get to the drawings, so.
Yeah, sure. I did look at the geotechnical report last night. I was pretty happy with that. It looks like the most important thing is just the phasing during construction, making sure that there's adequate time for the sand to settle. I don't really have much experience with how that's taken care of, but there's definitely enough bearing capacity. So I haven't designed those foundation thicknesses that are in these preliminary drawings yet. All that I've worked with so far are below grade wall thicknesses, which are determined mainly by the fluid. And actually, I assumed even a higher density for the soil below ground than what was recommended in the geotechnical reports. That's great. Otherwise, everything else above grade, we haven't really gotten into a ton because it's pretty standardized. You were talking about the mezzanine, so that would be on sheet 05303, this section.
Okay, so this is the mezzanine in the operations building?
Yeah, so we would be extending that
Okay.
all the way to the other wall, a whole walkway. We just haven't had time to update that yet. And then I
Ariel,
would,
if I can interject here,
yeah,
so, the mezzanine, which, she's talking about, is that in the operations building, we are going to have a mezzanine where we're gonna be, that's where the cloth media disc filters will be installed. And we've, expanded those from what we have shown on the plans a little bit, because there's gonna be some HVAC equipment that we're also going to be mounting up there. That's, where the heat exchanger that I mentioned for the, plant water source heat pump's gonna be. And also, we had a air handler that was tentatively gonna be installed on the exterior of the building with a large duct running up the side of the building and going in. We had to move that inside the building just so we can kind of preserve the exterior as much as we can. All right, thank you, Ariel.
yeah.
All right.
And then I don't have too many comments about that, but I know that some people were interested about the salt shed. So in the set that everybody has, we only have plan views. I don't know if you want me to share my screen to show a section cut of what that foundation would look like. I can. Is everyone able to see it?
Yep.
Okay. So the foundation wall will act like a bearing wall. So it will actually come up maybe 8 feet above grade. And it will be a very, very wide footing. It's not fully designed yet, but you'll see in the plan view a very wide foundation below there. So that is the design intent. I do have a picture here to match the existing shed. And so we'll place likely a wooden building on top of that wall. We haven't gotten to that step yet, but if anybody has any questions about that, I would be happy to answer.
Just, could we go higher with that 8-foot wall?
Yeah, definitely.
Could it be 10 to 12?
Sure, yeah. Let me make a note of that while we're discussing.
Possible.
Is that just for the wheel loader, making sure it doesn't
Yeah.
hit the actual building?
And getting the most material we can in there against.
Yeah, sure. That's not a problem.
I have a question on the salt shed while you have this. What's driving the width of that footing to be that wide? Looks like it's 9 feet into the
Yeah,
the
that would just be the overturning moment from either likely due to the maximum if the salt was at full capacity at a 32-degree angle going to the tippy top of that wall. Or
Okay.
it could be governed by the reverse, by the soil coming all the way up. I don't know what elevation that's at. I'll have to look into it on the left side.
And I don't think you have it on the structural drawings, but on the architecturals, it does call for a slab, concrete slab on grade. Is this something that's common for salt sheds from the chlorides, I guess?
Yeah,
The-
that's
the
what we would
slab-
have.
Go ahead.
We would have a slab on grade.
Yeah, so I think, Ziad, I think, the idea with having the slab on grade there, it's gonna obviously keep your salt from contact with the ground, and then not scooping dirt up when you go to pick up salt, so, it's, probably more of a housekeeping. Reason to have that slab there is more for housekeeping and keeping everything clean and tidy and neat.
Yeah, I guess would have to be treated a little bit different, all right, because of the chloride from the salt.
Yeah, so
Heat at the concrete.
I think for that. Ariel, I don't know if we have a specific type of concrete that we wanna specify, or specific kind of, chloride resistant concrete or admixture that we need to specify to put in there.
Yeah, I'll take a look. We have designed this before. I didn't personally design it, but I'll look at what we did for that one and get back to everybody of what we did
So
to treat that.
Follow up with Kyle, Lancy,
Yeah.
then, and to see if there's any particular admixture we need to use, or any kind of treatment we need to specify for the concrete.
typically what I see now here is asphalt, for a floor in the salt shed, but I mean, if there is an admixture that would hold up, or
Yeah, I think one of the, disadvantages too, to concrete or to asphalt is that, obviously over time it will deform from heavy equipment like wheel loaders, so you will have, deformation over time. So there's the flip side of, you have the deterioration of the asphalt pavement, or you have, concrete, which one lasts longer, so.
the walls, for the treatment building, are those already set at 2 feet? The thickness of these walls, or is this still in design?
Those are, the ones that are definitely set are any walls that are in contact with fluid that goes all the way up. That was the governing factor for the 2-foot walls. Any exterior walls below grade, we're coming pretty close. So for consistency, we just kept 2 feet, but there's some wiggle room. And then any other interior walls at that level were just determined by all of the nearby structures, such as the stairs. I don't really, let's go back to the drawings and look at that plan. So all of these walls I determined had to be 2 feet, and then for convenience, we just set all the perimeter walls also at 2 feet since they came pretty close. And it looks like he actually kept it 2 feet pretty much all around. But some of these, those are tanks, maybe the upper levels. None of them got reduced, but they could be reduced. There are a few areas where they could be. But yes, anything with fluid was set at 2 feet.
At that point, is it just easier to keep all the forms the same?
No, not that much easier.
No, I think
Just says the money.
there's value in reducing these walls, just because of the amount of concrete and the reinforcing. I know it's convenient to keep them all uniform, but, definitely the size that is not in contact with fluid may be reduced, but that's something we probably need to look into.
Yeah, there are a few areas here that could be reduced. But all of the tanks.
Maybe if you could mark on one of the drawings, what we could
Mhm.
reduce, and what would it be reduced to, like 1.5 feet? 18 maybe.
I would have to look at the loading coming from above and just double check.
Never.
Well, good value I have with you. Thank you.
Ariel, just looking at, the drawings, I'm looking at ST 1102. I think the walls that we could probably reduce would be the area on the left-hand side where we have that stairwell running down into the pipe tunnel. And then kind of the area of the wall that's kind of to the right of the post equalization basin that kind of snakes up around and then ties back into the SBR treatment or the SBR pad.
Right here.
But I think that looking at those are probably the only walls that I think that, are not
Could
a,
be.
fluid containing wall that would be in contact, so. We
Yeah,
could probably definitely reduce those and, I don't wanna necessarily, say exactly what it would be, but, probably. You're probably, they are also still a, bottom of slab is 20 and. Top of slab, we're in a lot of those areas is gonna be about, I think it was elevation 36, so we got, 16 feet of wall height. So we're probably still, even if we reduce that, we're probably still looking at like a 16-inch.
yeah, at
16.
least 18. I think that was the discussion. I was getting between 20 and 22 inches for just retaining soil for below grade. Yeah, I can look into it now that we have this more set in stone. And like I said, I assume more conservative numbers since we didn't have the geotech report. So there's a chance I can definitely reduce the exterior walls now. So I will hopefully be able to reduce that because I agree that would save some concrete and formwork costs.
For interior staircases, do you have those also in concrete, or can metal stairs be considered, just from a cost perspective, I guess?
David, I actually haven't seen the stairs at all. Do you know anything about that?
I thought I saw a design and I'm reasonably certain they're all gonna be aluminum. I'm not sure if we have them detailed out yet, though.
We generally use aluminum stairs.
That's what we thought, because they're shown in section, but really they were not identified.
Yeah, I think the only one, and we might have changed it because we covered it, the only one I was thinking could be concrete was the one on the, I guess, the north side, which is the left side over here. So I think at one point we had that more, not that one, the one, I guess the lower left. But I think we had ended up enclosing that, so
Correct.
it was original, we had it open, you're thinking.
Yeah.
So that could be-
You know, while that one could be aluminum though, then there's always the concerns that especially if you have an aluminum tread type design, you know, open grate stair on that. You know, obviously there's no access to the underside of that, so it's just gonna be a place to collect dirt. So,
Mhm.
dirt and debris, and no way to clean that out. So that might end up being concrete in that corner.
Yeah, generally we have aluminum unless somebody wants FRP, but I don't see the need for that
Actually, if
here.
you look at Lauren, if you go to ST 1301. That's
You
their.
want to reshare, Lauren, or?
Oh, sorry, I thought Lauren was still sharing.
Sorry.
Okay,
Chelsea's back with food, so I'm gonna step out for 1 second.
okay. Go S 1301.
1301.
Yeah, you scroll past it.
Yeah, right there.
There you go. You want to just zoom in, that's one it's showing as concrete.
Concrete,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know, Chelsea, if there's any, or not, sorry, not Chelsea, Ariel. I don't know if there's any value in stepping the foundation footer, you know, obviously we don't necessarily need to have it go all the way down on that last half of that run, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's something we can look at in value engineering and see if there's any value in doing that. You know, I think part of the issue is that if we did step that footer, you know, I think that it might increase the chance of issues with differential settlement, so that might be a reason to keep it kind of as designed here. Rather than having, you know, risk differential settlement, now you could have potential, you know, cracks in the structure or other issues. But Ariel, that's something you can talk to Kyle about that and see if he has any feedback.
Yes, I will let you know.
Okay.
Was there anything else on our agenda? We discussed the solar panel considerations. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
So we were talking about the FRP covers and I was trying to. I know that I provided to structural the design loadings that we were going to use for the covers, and I don't know if you have those currently.
Not readily
Okay.
available.
Yeah, I was trying to find where I had them, and so I do know that I had provided at one point had to find a loading, and there was questions about it earlier today, and I was trying to see like.
I would have to dig for that. I can look for that over lunch and see if I can
Yeah, you
find
can
that.
take a look for that. Here were some of the design criteria that I had at least. I don't know if these were final, but there was a concentrated load of 300 pounds within a 30-inch square area. And there was a dead and live snow load of 65 pounds per square foot.
65, okay.
Yeah. I'll have to confirm those are the actual final numbers that were used, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'll see what I can find.
Yeah, it looks like there was a deflection limit L over 180.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So the support for the FRP covers is designed by you guys,
it'll be by the
manufacturer.
one of the two. I don't recall off the top of my head if that was the part of our design or the cover design, but they'll be designed for intermediate sports in there as needed. Great. Do we have any other questions for our structural engineers? Just kind of one thing too, that we will be having monorail over the influent pumps.
Right.
We're gonna be using a base of the design for that. We're gonna have a manual, gear trolley hoist for the manual chain lift. Reason we're not going with electric is that a class 1 Div 1 rated electric hoists are very expensive.
Yep.
So, we're gonna have hoist in there, and obviously for, other areas, we're gonna have, strategically placed lifting points for, for pulling out that grit tube out of the grit classifier. Anywhere where we need to have submersible pumps removed, or putting in data cranes. Oh, the little therm data crane type things. So just coordinate that kind of stuff so that we have all, try to make our maintenance as easy as possible.
Thank you.
Now for the SBRs, there's
Yes.
railings in between the hatch covers and stuff.
So we will have a perimeter railing now, because we will have so the perimeter railing around the tanks.
So I'm talking in between, like if you're walking between SBR 1 and 2.
So with the covers, we weren't planning to have intermediate railing like between we weren't gonna have a cover and then a railing at the edge of the cover. It was just gonna be the cover.
Okay.
I know that I think in the last call we talked about, we're gonna be having the safety grading on any of the floor hatches. So we're gonna have those obviously. Now, I think this may, you bring up a good point, do we need to put in railing? Do we want to have railing around the actual individual hatches?
I'm just
on the
thinking just
SBR?
because if we took the hatch off for whatever maintenance or whatever, say we have to do something.
Mhm.
Now you have an open space and there's an open hole that's not, we can obviously protect it with cones and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but.
Yeah, I think that's the question is, do we wanna do that, or do we just wanna have like, is that just something that is temporary safety barrier is gonna be
Yeah.
acceptable to use? So that's just kind of, I think, one of the things we'll have to consider, and maybe we have a little more discussion on if there's a particular things we want to see.
Yes, I think depending on how we do the covers, if we don't have them, then we would need railings for sure.
Yeah, it's just a thought, that's all, just kind of,
Yeah.
if you don't have covers, then you need the railings, so.
Right, yes, I think, there's definitely some more figuring out how that would look from an alternate perspective.
Well, I think that's one of the things we'll have to consider when we prepare the bid documents. We're obviously, if the covers are gonna be an alternate, then we're gonna have to have we'll have to make sure that we put handrail around those tanks. As part of, in case the add alternate is not accepted. So, we would, obviously, in that case, we would need to put in a rail around the SBR tank.
In typical configuration, and let's say you don't have covers on top of the tanks, do you have to have a catwalk of some sort?
So there's gonna be like a T walkway around the top of all tanks.
Okay.
So yes, there'll be a walkway around top of all tanks.
I was gone for a second. Are we good on structural? I know our food is here, but we do have Clara from our electrical team online. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk electrical, so I'm gonna propose, do we go over that quick and then we'll break and bring food over? Selling plan?
Sure.
Okay, I see that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ariel, for joining. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
So so electrical, is definitely something that kind of follows along with all the other disciplines. So electrical, as you can see by our only couple drawings, is a little bit farther behind as we work all the details out. But I think we do have some one-line diagrams towards the end, and I know we have been looking into the generators. I know one thing we've talked about at a lot of meetings is making sure we have silencers on the generators from a noise perspective. And I know there's been some coordination with some of the utility providers, so I guess, Clara, if you wanna talk a little bit about, your discussions with the utilities, and if you have anything to bring up on the drawings, the one-line diagrams, these ones you should find right at the end.
Yeah. So I guess I can start with the generator, or I guess I can start with the service. From going from like the top of the one line. So I can share the one line we're looking at. So we're all okay. Okay, so we're getting service from Eversource. We're requesting a new 2000 amp service. So they'll bring in a new transformer, 480 volt transformer, 2000 kVA. And I've been coordinating with the representative from there just to make sure that we're on the same page with where the transformer is going to be located and all the conduit and wire going to the transformer from the poles. So that's all going to be Eversource's design, and they're going to put together a work order and figure out, how they want to put that transformer in. And yeah, then we'll go to, all the metering equipment, the disconnect switch, and then towards the automatic transfer switch for the standby generator. And I've been working with a bunch of the different generator manufacturers that we specify to make sure that it's going to have, the highest decibel rating, like the most noise cancellation. So I guess the lowest decibel rating possible. And for some of them, it might be, they might have to have like a custom enclosure for the generator, but yeah, we're working with the manufacturers to make sure we get like the highest level of noise cancellation there. So it will be the quietest. And yeah, so it will be a 550 kW natural gas generator, and Cummins is our base.
If I can interject there, that's the 550, I mean, the drawings do say 750, but
Yeah.
you and I were talking yesterday and it looks like we had a erroneous extra load placed in there, so the generator actually did go down in size, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And before you continue, is there any preference the town has for a generator manufacturer to be used as basis of design?
Me? Oh,
I'm sorry.
I don't think so at this time.
Okay,
Yeah.
I asked that because I have clients that do have a preference, so. Okay. Right,
Yeah,
thank you.
typically. Okay. Yeah, typically we use Cummins, Milton Cat, MTU. We also sometimes use Kohler, but for larger than 500 kW, we'll stick with those three because Kohler outsources to another rep for over 500 kW. So yeah, those are the three we work with mainly. Yeah, and I guess that kind of sums up those, the service and the generator. Is there any questions on that before I go into the rest of the equipment?
So is the size actually 500 or 550? Is that been finalized?
Yeah, yep. 550 kW.
Is there value, and this is gonna use natural gas, is there value in going with, two smaller generator? Was it natural gas?
Like two smaller generators paralleled.
Yeah,
There's not really a benefit because the size, like if the natural gas service will still have to supply both generators, the size increase would still be required since you're gonna have two now. Um, so yeah, we would just recommend sizing just the one standby generator.
this generator for the whole site or just the wastewater portion?
It's Yeah,
ahead,
so
sorry.
did someone say something? I kind of cut out.
Oh, I said, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just it'll be for the wastewater treatment plant. So the DPW building already has a Kohler generator, and that we're gonna leave that as it is.
So Claire, is my understanding, this is going to be a new service a new service basically from the road to the treatment plant. So it's not going to be tied in at all with the current DPW, correct?
Yeah, totally separate service. Eversource has requirements in how we have to connect everything with the existing transformer, but it'll be two separate services.
And one more question for me, is this, generator intended to accommodate phase 1 and phase 2, or just phase 1 only?
So I think I just wanted to clarify with the process team. So is phase 2, those would be the future loads we have on the MEL?
Correct.
Okay,
That is
so
correct. Phase 2
yep.
will be the future loads.
So yeah, it's accounting for both phases.
Thank you.
And Ziad, kind of to add to that, when we were designing in this, we were looking ahead and thinking about the situation that we have with, solids disposal in New England and on the Cape in particular. So we were also including a relatively healthy budget for, in that loading for if we need to put in dewater.
Okay. Does anyone have any more questions on the power tower generation and utility coordination?
Can the transformer go that close to the generator?
Yeah, so
Was,
what was the last thing?
code wise,
Yeah, so Eversource requires 20 feet of separation between the transformer and a generator, so we made sure to keep those clearances in the site plan.
It's been updated since this printed one. Yep, so they're 20 feet apart now.
Very good.
That's 10 feet from the building.
Is anything else electrically, Claire, you want to go over? It's probably, some of the basic stuff as far as powering, the equipment. Obviously there's some things on VFDs.
Yeah, so right now we show two main MCCs, and we're planning on having those in the two electric rooms, the one in the treatment building and one in the operations building. And so that'll hold the MCCs and the other major distribution equipment like the panel boards, the lighting transformers, and then some of the lighting panels as well as the motor starters, VFDs, any control panels that are not going to be locally mounted will be in there. So yeah, we currently have a 2000 amp MCC. That's the main MCC, and then the second one is going to be 800 amp. So yeah, we're just working to, organize the distribution and, lay out the electric rooms, get all that figured out of, where we want to put everything. But yeah, lots of lots of design.
Any other electrical questions? Okay. Well, we are in between everybody and lunch, so thanks Clara for hanging out with us a little bit afternoon, and thanks everyone for letting Clara go before we went and break for lunch. So yeah, thanks Clara, and thanks everyone, and we'll I guess leave this on hold for a second. Thanks Steve for hanging on, and yeah, we'll come back probably about, let's say 1 o'clock. Zoom recording. Thank you. So we are on the agenda item 12. We did get through everything up to our lunch break. So we'll try to, go through as quick as we can for the next several sections. I did leave some time, about 25 minutes at the end for open discussion, so hopefully that'll be our float for the meeting. So we do have Kyle Morris from our office to talk about the architectural design. So let me either, do you have the drawings open, Kyle, or I can open them as well? I have them open.
If you have them, that'd be great.
Sure. So I guess one thing that I did want to mention before we started architectural, and I guess this kind of is relevant for this as well, but just so everyone's aware, I think maybe it was talked about manufacturers. I know, Dave mentioned like Flasco for UV system, but just so everyone's aware, we are not necessarily going to be getting the item that we specified, but we will be specifying 3 manufacturers per SRF. In addition to that, they will need to meet BABA compliance. So we are working on, items that will be included in like a de minimis waiver, or actually, if they don't make. So just want to let everyone. Let me bring out the drawings of Kyle. I think for what we wanted to discuss, for architectural was really some of the building layouts and elevations. Honestly, I think we've probably gone over the building layouts quite a bit at this point from all the other discussions we've had, but maybe if you can speak to some of the code compliance and accessibility, and then maybe we can start talking a little bit about interior finishes, because I know we've talked about the exterior of the building, but I don't know if we've really talked about interior. So I guess, Thomas, you want to speak to, some of the architectural features, and I think probably at least a good half of the people here have been in some of the other like CPC meetings and understand the facade and the cowl walls, but we can kind of talk about that. Oh, and I'll show you this. I will share my screen. That's a long note. Can you hear us? Can you see everything?
I see it, yeah. Thank you. I guess, I don't know, where do you want to start, Lauren?
If you want to start on this SBR building and talk maybe a little bit about the facade and
Okay, yeah, I know Dave and you, Lauren, had mentioned, kind of questions about the reverse gables on this end, or on this side. One thing to mention, or 2 things to mention about them. We thought it broke up this facade a little bit to make it, not seem so long of a building. It kind of broke up the elevation here. And then secondly, the other thing that it does is it's going to push water away from where the doors are. So if you notice, the overhead doors and a lot of the swinging doors are under these gabled areas. Hopefully minimize, rainwater as you're walking through doorways and such. One other thing to mention, I guess, is the translucent panels here down the center. Those are really for getting those tanks in and out if it's in need of replacement, I guess. Been working with Dave on making sure those are sized correctly. And then on the other elevations there, you can see the access to the tanks behind. And we've been working on a mezzanine area in that taller section to access the top of the tank as well, and a door that you can kind of see on the bottom of that west elevation there. Trying to really play off the Cape Cod and the shingled look here, but I don't know, were there any questions or comments or things you like, things you don't like? I don't know.
I guess we do have two operators here from Whitewater, and I guess, yeah, so this is really so in the future when the tanks need to be replaced, it should be relatively easy to get them in and out, rather than, like a brick wall that, has a construction joint or something like that.
Yeah, I thought that was a great way to address that.
Like I always say, it's easy to get the tank out. How many pieces you want it in? Getting the new tank in, well, it's a little bit more of an issue.
We're working on that in front of project currently, so yes, we don't have those.
And I think this probably looks a little bit different. I can't remember the last iteration we sent, but it was at first it was just one long building. So I do think this breaks it up a little bit. I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, the one end section there we kind of raised up to get a little extra space there for headroom and the mezzanine, and above some of the equipment that's in that below in that space there.
Go ahead, Dale.
Is there anything in the wall assembly that could potentially reduce the noise from the blower room and some other places where they could potentially have some extra noise, perhaps?
I guess not at the moment. We're not showing anything for sound attenuation. There's a few ways we can go about that. We can add, acoustic panels or acoustic mats to the interior side of those rooms to deaden the sound. Another option that I've done in the past, I'm not super fond of it in these kinds of situations, but they make the sound attenuating block, which kind of has slits and holes in the back side of it to deaden that noise. And I will, I guess, have a caveat to the sound attenuating block. In cases like these at treatment plants or places that tend to get a little dirty, I'm not a big fan of those block, only because it tends to give a place for critters to hide and for dust to collect, and among other things kind of in that realm. I don't know, do you guys have a preference to a sound attenuation product or solution, I guess?
I don't know, we've seen like mineral wool or some other, sound blankets perhaps, as opposed to the block. I agree with that. But those is, techniques perhaps we could look into.
And also, Ziad, keep in mind too, that the blowers are gonna be in sound attenuating enclosures, and then they're gonna be in a building, so. Really the big concern that we have, and because I've seen it happen on projects, is you get intake noises. And so we're looking at using like acoustical louvers for the air intake for the blowers. with blower intake, sometimes you can get weird, like low frequency harmonics, which can cause issues, which I've seen before, so.
That's part of why we're doing the noise study too, to be able to, angle or locate those hoovers in the, the best locations.
And also just to get a baseline for what's existing at the site already, so that, in the future, we can make sure that we minimize our noise and we're not really raising it above ambient, so.
Yeah, for those who are on, and I apologize, I know some people have been on some calls and some people haven't, but with the noise study that we're going to be doing over the course of 7 days. So obviously the transfer station's right up the street, essentially from the DPW. And that is open, I believe, 5 days a week, so I'll kind of get the whole weekly cycle of the noise. Maybe if you wanna go over the operations building a little bit. Probably pretty similar, but
Yeah, it is pretty similar. We have a larger section to encompass the larger equipment and some of the other, process equipment, with some translucent panels on the one side here to get equipment in and out, easily in the future. Again, we have another mezzanine in this area, in the large area to, I don't know, Dave, what do you want to call it? You want to call it kind of bonus space? I don't know. We have some mechanical equipment up there, to minimize putting it on the roof or putting it in the yard somewhere. But again, it's similar kind of aesthetic here with the Cape Cod shingle and some windows to get as much natural light in as we can.
Dave and Kyle, these are those similar knockout panels to be able to get the filters out, right?
Correct.
So
Correct,
these are
yeah.
also those translucent panels.
The walls that are shown as shingled, the exterior walls, are they, were they steel studs with gypsum sheathing, or have you gotten that far into it?
Say that again?
So what's your proposed wall section? What are you proposing this building is gonna be made out of?
Thank you.
So right now we're showing this as a block building, load-bearing block walls, pre-manufactured trusses, with a framing and sheathing system on the outside of the block wall to carry the shingles and siding. In the admin area, the office space area, we're gonna be proposing a gyp board on the interior side of the exterior wall, and then I guess I'm not sure what we're showing right now. I forget what we're showing, to be honest. If you could go back to the plan, Lauren, we could start talking about some interior finishes a little bit. Yeah, so right now we're showing metal stud and gypboard interior partition walls. In some cases, we do, a 6-inch block for interior walls, but we kind of felt for this application, it was kind of the most cost-effective way to create these spaces. Gives you a little bit of a softer interior, not just, block walls. A little less durability, right? But hopefully you're not kicking through the walls in the office space, I guess, and beating it up too much. But I guess you guys tell me if you would prefer a little bit more of a durable interior space with some block wall and painted block, or do you, are you okay with the metal stud gypboard?
I think metal stud's fine. I don't
Okay.
see him leaving for. Anyone want?
Okay. And then I guess taking a step back even a little bit here, looking at these spaces. I believe you've kind of seen the plan and these rooms and the layout. Is there anything we're missing? Is there anything, you know, you wish you had or could live without, or kind of compromise on the layout?
One thing that I would bring up here is that we talked with the Whitewater folks last week at the CPC meeting, and I think you guys are gonna send us what you wanna see in a lab space.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Dave, for bringing that up. A kind of a list of equipment, a list of space needed for, you know, sizes of that equipment that need to go in that lab would be super helpful in laying out that space and making sure we have enough room for everything that's needed.
Yeah, I wasn't at that meeting, but do you guys end up doing a lot of analyses in your own labs, or do you send most of it out?
Most of it is being sent out, so it's really those process control tools and the fundamental stuff that has a really short hold time. pH, obviously, right? pH, good quality pH equipment, calibration, being able to maintain mixed liquor and all of our, you know, field level kits. So we typically have not been doing a heavy outfit on the lab side of things. And usually subbing those pieces out.
And is that, just to ask, is that typical for most, you know, operations? I mean, you either send it to a, you know, centralized lab or.
Yeah,
or send it out to
I think different groups can do it different ways and things like that, but I think see it trending more that way, at least in my experience of utilizing that. You take some of the risk out of it and things like that as well too, and just the cost and maintaining of the equipment. So we usually try to keep it pretty streamlined. So whether it's town-owned equipment, you know, and whether that be from the start and town-owned equipment, there can be some different language that goes along with that. Or whether the operation firm, you know, brings that all in, owns that and does that too. This is with any of those items, and as we tend to move into some operational discussions, like that always comes down to this, like, you know, the risk and the cost and how to balance that out, is where those dollars and cents lie. So that's my take on it. We can provide those like fundamental pieces that we use in our operation, and with that would come some of the spacing, but it's usually not a tremendous amount.
Sorry, Kyle.
Great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it would. I guess Dave or Lauren, was there anything else we wanted to talk about for that lab space?
I think that's pretty much it on my end. You know, I kind of wanted to confirm that, you know, I wasn't thinking that you'd end up doing too much in-house. So that's in terms that I was suspecting.
You go to like the older labs or the hoods, a lot of different work and things there, but that's not the direction I've seen it go. And we're fine with that.
I think the only thing I would suggest is maybe make sure that one of the sinks has an eye wash.
Okay.
For safety, just for, you know,
Good call.
You mean right in the admin building too?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, if you're doing the lab work in there.
Yeah,
then you might-
Want to consider
The
a overhead
shower.
shower.
Yeah.
And where that might drain if they do have to use it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I know we had those already in the chemical room, but I
Yes,
don't know.
Right,
It's not
but
in here.
depending on what they're doing in that lab.
yes, we kind of backtracking a little bit, we do have the three areas where the bulk tanks are, they have chemical containment areas, sumps, size per TR-16. Each sump has a eye wash and shower, and we also have an eye wash and shower at the bulk fill station outside.
On that point, kind of, that area outside there, I know we were talking about this a little before, but something that triggered my memory was just containment in and around the fill stations. for those chemicals?
So how the fill stations right now, we've got a fill box that's gonna be on the wall mount. It'll have the bulk fill connection in here. That box will have a drain, which will drain to the respective containment zone for the chemical.
Thank you.
Guess in the essence of time, any other questions for Kyle or architectural? I think we don't have our building mechanical design person, so maybe if there's some like HVAC or plumbing questions, that's stuff that kind of follows along as well.
Yeah, I guess, Lauren, I have a few questions just on types of finishes in the, I guess, office spaces, conference rooms, shower areas, lab. Talking, I guess, floor finishes. Do you want to see carpet in the offices, or do you want to see, vinyl tile or ceramic tile everywhere? Is there a preference there?
Yeah, I was gonna say low maintenance for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, carpet just gets tough no matter what you.
Does get.
That sounds gross.
Carpet in the wastewater treatment plant sounds like carpet in a bathroom. That's
Okay.
It sounds like vinyl or something.
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah, low maintenance, durable is kind of the feeling I'm getting. So I'll kind of use our judgment and we'll get that in and pick some finishes and we'll have a further discussion about that.
Anything else, Kyle?
I think that's all I have for this at the moment.
Any questions for Kyle before we pop over to, we do have our INC team here. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
So next we have, I'm gonna say we're gonna skip over building mechanical design. So we don't have our person on the call. If he joins later, we can always go back. But we have talked a little bit about some of the HVAC and, kind of moving those around like we did in the operations building. And then also making sure that the louvers are, attenuating for noise. Plumbing systems, I think pretty standard. We did mention there is gonna be a laboratory in the upstairs mezzanine area, mainly because we were able to fit it in and it wasn't gonna, trigger anything for code wise to have to be ADA or something like that, where it would be a little more complicated. Thank you.
In terms of that, I mean, it's an industrial facility, so we're not trying to keep it cool like a bedroom, but it seems like more about ventilation, making sure that dangerous gas fumes and things don't accumulate someplace. So I'm assuming you've got that has obviously got to be a big part of it, right? Making sure it vents correctly rather than whatever the temperature is.
Right. Dave, you wanna speak to that a little bit or?
Yeah, so I think just speaking to that a little bit, for the ventilation. So the ventilation, most of it is gonna be ventilating and heating to make sure we maintain a minimum temperature. Areas that will be air conditioned, obviously, will be the operations, actual office admin space, and also the electrical rooms. Where we air condition those spaces to be able to maintain, cooler temperatures. Obviously, you don't wanna have high temperatures to outrun or to exceed the temperature, so. So I mean, if we wanna talk about, we have INC folks on now, if we wanna talk about INC, we can do that. I have my building mechanical folk. He is available, so we can get him on the call after INC. And we can talk about that more. Does that work for you, Lauren?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, Grady and Giselle, I don't know if you wanna talk about any of these titles. You go over, I know you guys had a meeting on last Tuesday, maybe if you wanna cover a little bit of that. And if you want me to bring up any drawings, do that as well.
Yeah, sounds good. I guess, Giselle, do you want to kick us off and I can chime in as needed?
Yeah, do you want to pull up? I think the architecture is probably best for our discussion. Unless, well, we can get into the PNIDs, if we want to talk more process stuff, but I think for the sake of INC, let's.
What job number?
It is, I am not sure. I think it's an I drawing. I don't think it's PI.
I-001.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm just pulling up the notes from the IT coordination meeting as well.
And Giselle, if you want, I can talk about the architecture drawing first. That works.
Yeah, you want to just kind of run through basically what we did the other day for the IT meeting and I guess incorporate any decisions that came out of that or open items.
So just to give everyone kind of a high level view, this is the network architecture for the plant using Ethernet IP for communications. And what Lauren has shown here, this is kind of the main SCADA rack, so to speak. So you may have seen at some plants or other sites where you'll have a SCADA 1 computer, SCADA 2 computer. This is a little bit different. We're using virtualization. Upside to that is if something happens to one of the SCADA client workstations, there's some built-in redundancy there. So you could pull that computer out, configure it, and basically pull from the main SCADA servers that you can see there. So we have SCADA server 1 in the rack, SCADA server 2, and terminal server. Excuse me. Terminal server allows just for multiple independent connections, and the other SCADA servers allow for basically a one-to-one mapping for those SCADA client workstations there. So that basically just gives is the brains of the whole SCADA system and how it pulls data from those other PLCs. You can see kind of in the bottom there, we have Open Cape Fiber currently listed there as the communication. I think we may have. Yeah, there we go. If we go back up to the corner there, we have Open Cape Fiber going into the network interface cabinet there. So that's how we're going to be doing our remote connections. So using that internet connection, we'll be sure to have the firewall like we have there to prevent any unwanted access there. And we'll likely be using remote access software, something similar to LogMeIn. I'm not sure if anyone here has used it at any other sites, but pretty simple remote access software to gain access to SCADA so operators can log in if it's 2 in the morning and see if it's, is it a nuisance alarm or is it something that's more serious that needs to require going into the plant to take a closer look at it. And
Are you proposing read-only or actual control from that platform?
So there's a couple different options for it. We can do read-only. It ultimately is up to what everyone here believes in. I've seen it done both ways, but that's certainly, it would just be basically based on access and privileges for login.
Right. How we have it set up now with like the combination of the firewall and the terminal server is effectively a DMZ. So you could definitely have remote control if that's something that will be useful for you guys for operations, or it can simply just be monitoring.
Thank you.
Would that be your preference to have remote?
I don't know if I have that answer right now.
Okay.
It's a blend usually, and with some access to just be able to keep things safe and appropriate, that's all.
Okay.
But we want to be able to like silence the alarms. And if, so that way they don't keep calling out, acknowledge it, and that's one and done.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. One thing to note as well is that we can have different levels of access as well. So if you have some operators that should have control over certain parts of the system, or if you want certain operators that only have read-only or view access, that's something else that we can do as well.
That's great. Thank you.
The other thing to note here, which we don't have it all filled out based on our discussions from last week, but we do have that network interface cabinet, NIC-IT, kind of going off connected to the other network interface cabinet for the operations building. That one there with just the sole Ethernet switch, that's basically any, that can be used for any sort of infrastructure that town IT wants in terms of cameras, in terms of security, door access, things like that. And that
Mail services, yeah, any kind of business
Exactly.
operations.
And then we'll also have room in the electrical building for, I believe there's going to be some things that need to be wall mounted outside of the network interface cabinet. I know I've talked a decent amount so far, so I guess I'll just leave the floor open before we move on to other parts of the plant. If anyone has any questions on the SCADA part in terms of either hardware or software or remote access, anything like that.
Yeah, Grady, yeah, this is Rich. Maybe I missed this, but was this typically owned or operated by the third-party operator, or is this town infrastructure?
This is town infrastructure.
So it would be running through the town network?
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood your question. So this is going to be basically a separate network. Basically, there'll be the SCADA/plant PLC control network, and then there's also the IT network. So those are going to be segmented physically. So basically anything regarding town IT, whether it's security access, extra office computers, things like that, that'll be on the IT network. And then everything kind of related to process controls, whether it's the PLCs or SCADA or anything like that, that'll be on its own separate network.
And would you be using VPNs for the remote access?
It depends. We have some clients that have a VPN connection, then some use something called LogMeIn, which is a little bit different, but in essence, it's similar functionality.
And who typically is responsible for the controls infrastructure?
So in terms of programming, GHD typically does the programming during construction. So what we do is we do the SCADA setup, basically getting the firewall configured, any Ethernet switches in that cabinet, SCADA servers, the SCADA view nodes, and then any of the PLC programming with the plant PLCs. The plant PLCs are the operation building control panel one, CP-OPS, and then the treatment building control panel, which is CP-TRT in the other treatment building. And then what we do is we kind of integrate with the other OEM vendors, whether it's the UV system or the with the GAC feed pumps, grit system, SBR, things of that nature.
And once it's configured, is it turned over to the operator? Was that something that Whitewater typically takes on as part of your ops contract?
Not usually. I usually look at it as an asset of the town, and should you change vendors or something happens, that it remains in the best interest of the town to own that. Obviously, we're happy to support it, communicate any deficiencies or challenges and things like that, but I think most of the time that being just like any of really the other assets or components of the system that it's owned by the town, I think is the best way to do it.
I guess that's right, and that's similar to what we're doing with the water right now, and we're making some changes there, but I guess that's why I'm asking Grady as whether this is on the town network or not. Some of this infrastructure already exists as far as Open Cape and actually redundant failover to Comcast, VPNs and all that good stuff. But I'm not sure we have to decide it today, but this is a couple of questions.
Okay.
Does GHD provide SCADA operations? You guys?
I guess.
I don't-
Oh, go ahead, Giselle.
No, I was gonna say, I don't want to talk out of turn, but I believe, yes, I've seen other SCADA support contracts around GHD. So yes, if that's what you're looking for, like a support contract or someone to maintain the system. But I don't have details on that.
Is that what you mean, like maintaining the system as opposed to operating the equipment within the system?
Right. Like if you have, I don't know, a monthly check-in where you have a to-do list of things that need addressing on SCADA system and stuff like that, like we could maintain PLCs and SCADA programs and things like that. But that's very high level, and that's as much as I know about it, as far as like what we have going on at GHD.
Oh. So nothing operating within the system, just.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So. It'd be owned by the town, but in theory, it would be operated by Whitewater. And GHD would have a support contract to fix any SCADA
Okay.
issues.
That's how we have in a few of our other municipalities, that model, and it's been pretty successful. I would say that the key to that is, when it comes to a budgeting standpoint, is having like a real line item related to this. And, you know, periodically doing it, because at the pace that things are moving out there right now, the infrastructure often ends up falling way behind, and you end up with a lot of risk there. And it seems like a great tool, and it is, but it opens you up to a whole bunch of risk without regular check-ins and a plan to maintain it. Because we've often got involved, and community gets it, and they're all excited about it, but you know, those components, whether they could be, they don't necessarily become obsolete from a functionality standpoint, but certainly from a risk and security standpoint. So it's just a really good independent line item within the overall treatment plant operations.
I guess that's kind of why I was asking a lot of these things. We have, over the last several years, implemented a lot of very robust IT protocols, security protocols, replacement program, all these things that, you know, we could slot into this setup, knowing what the equipment is, into that plan. That's why I was wanting clarification, is this owned by the town, and is it on the town network? Because a lot of these things, we already have in place. We even have remote management agents that go on every device and computer that manages and monitors all these things as well from a security standard. So,
But you mentioned redundancy. Does this system have redundancy built into it? I mean, I see two servers here, but I don't see.
well, the town network, that's why I asked, because the town network always has monitoring agents monitoring each device, but we also have failovers on our firewalls and on our internet connectivity. So if OpenCape goes down, it automatically fails over to Comcast. We're implementing a third one for Starlink in case we lose everything off the poles and wires.
Are any of these servers critical to the operation of, because of catastrophic failure, I guess, what I'm really driving at. In other words, is this system operating the plant? And is there a single point of failure that could cause a catastrophic issue?
I mean, I think we have a lot of the equipment set up for manual operation, or like, you know, automatic operation at the actual piece of equipment. Where I've seen, and you can speak to it too, for what you've seen, but when I've seen SCADA failures, it usually affects like regulatory aspects, depending on what things you're supposed to keep track of. If you lose that SCADA historian with all of the data in it, you no longer meet your, you know, regulated sampling per day or your flow amounts per day. I don't know if that kind of rings true.
If you're using that to capture that data and some of the logging and things like that, certainly that could be a part of it. And just the infrastructure within the panels, whether it be the PLCs and input cards, and again, kind of going back to having a real plan based on the lifespan of that equipment, because it could go far longer, but like, we've been fortunate in a few communities are working in like be proactively replacing some of those components so that the family, but we're having spare input, output. PLCs, one of the biggest pieces is, as we talked about a little bit, is keeping that program up to date. And as any changes or corrections are made, that there is redundant copies of the program that are easily accessible, that can be put in PLC and implemented relatively quickly. So that's an important part of that overall plan, and why I say kind of a line item related to that.
And Grady, it's my understanding that, you know, really what is doing the control of the process is actually the program in the PLC itself. So we could entirely lose the whole server system, but the plant will still be running.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess just a couple other things to note on the redundancy. So like I mentioned, in terms of the workstations there, those aren't doing any of the historian saving, or really, it's really just a view into the server itself. So if for some reason someone spilled their coffee on the computer and broke it, you could grab another one, buy another one and connect it to the network and basically remote into that server. So that's one form of redundancy there. Second form of redundancy is in terms of the SCADA failover. So we do have physical hardware, so SCADA server 1, SCADA server 2, but there's also virtual machines on each one, basically simulating that SCADA server software. So we'll have backups of those as well, that we could always pull up if something were to go wrong with the initial instance. And there's redundancy between them. So SCADA server 1 and 2 are sharing their database and all that information back and forth. Same thing with the historization. The other thing in terms of redundancy is on a little bit different note, but in terms of the network architecture as a whole. So we have a ring topology basically meaning that all the PLCs and everything on the network are kind of set like a ring. Lauren, if you can zoom out a little bit, might give a little bit of good explanation with the visualization here. But essentially from each PLC to the next one, or essentially each Ethernet switch, you can see it kind of goes in a loop. It's a little bit hard to read right now just with the number of PLCs, but if you follow the lines between them, kind of go from the operations building up into the treatment building and then back around outside. The upside of that is if we were to lose Ethernet connection between, say, any two PLCs, but like the treatment PLC and I believe, let's see, the plant water control, for instance, you wouldn't lose access to that on the SCADA system or rest of the network because you have another way, if you loop back around the other way, to basically get that information on the network. So you'd have to have two severed connections as well in terms of that.
Right, and that's contingency for if like the PLC itself went down, so like the node on the ring went down, or if you physically had a cut cable or something. Both of those scenarios would work. And then just to add, since we did talk a little bit about the IT network, so the fiber going around it, we're showing it as like one line of fiber, but ideally it'll be, I think 6 or 12 pairs is what we're looking at, and each pair will be dedicated to a different network. So they'll be physically separated that way, and they'll all just be logically separated. So we can have one for controls, which will be OPS, we'll keep calling it that. One for IT. So if you did end up needing any kind of IT services during our meeting, we did talk about having potentially like Wi-Fi on site. If you need that in the treatment building, fiber can be dedicated to make sure that that's working between the two locations. And then same thing if we have third-party systems for CCTV or access control or anything that we want, segregated, they can have their own dedicated fiber pairs too.
And then also, sorry, I was going to say one more thing as well is for each of the HMIs, you can see for all the OEM panels, one thing that we do request for the vendors is to have their own separate trending basically built in for those HMIs. That way, if something were to happen to SCADA, you still have that critical information you need for levels or flows or any sort of process information as well. And of course, always we request multiple spares for IO modules, PLCs, things like that. So it's easy for the operators to load a program in and replace something if needed.
Here's my question was in relation to what Rich mentioned has been done like on the town side. Is that some of those things, I guess, things can be used at the treatment plant as well? Like as far as that like turnover from like open cable to Comcast, or is that, we need to segregate the SCADA system from everything else, so we wouldn't be able to like reuse those, that technology? I guess it was Grady or Giselle.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think that's something that we do need to have. I think when we have our follow-up meeting with, I believe his name was Dan, about the IT networks and like the IT needs, and kind of even farther the talks with Apex as far as connecting with the remote pump station stuff. I think we'll have a better idea of what we can and can't leverage of what's existing.
So, based on the discussion we had last week, remember we entertained the dark fiber, but then we kind of looked at it and it's somewhat cost prohibitive given the length of, conduit, we talk about miles and it's really not feasible. And then you have to have, handholds along the way every few hundred feet. So that's kind of out of the question. So we're kind of landing on the VPN type. With the mission dialer as a backup. So those are the kind of things we're landing on right now.
Okay. And I know there were a couple pump stations that we were thinking wouldn't have fiber access. I'm assuming for those we'd be going with radio communications.
Yeah, well, we haven't finalized it to be honest with you, but I think most of the stations will have the VPN, but let's just go with that for the time being, and then we'll confirm with you as soon as we get some, information, additional information.
Okay, sounds good.
Is any more questions for Giselle and Brady? I see it sounds like we have some follow-up that will be happening soon.
For the equipment for the PLCs and the cards, what kind of equipment is it gonna be? GE, Koyo?
We have Allen
Pass it
Bradley,
on.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Allen Bradley,
Control
Compact
Logics.
Yeah. Yeah, control and compact logics, depending on the size of the IO.
And that's with the vendor panels, we're gonna be also specifying they have to provide, you know, Control Logics family PLCs with their panels. So we have consistency throughout the system.
Exactly.
Okay. With that, we'll move back to building mechanical design. We do have John Patrick and, Rick Van Hout on the line. Thanks, Giselle and Grady, appreciate your time. You're free to jump off.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
So back to John. So I guess we have been talking a little bit about some of the HVAC, you know, as far as some noise, attenuation and things in the blower room, but, I guess, is there anything specific we want to go over, Dave, or anything specific, for, you know, or Sean, that you want to bring up or ask the, whoever else here?
So I do want to make note that I believe it was at the CPC meeting, there was the question about trying to use electrification as much as possible instead of, I think, having the natural gas fired heat in the treatment building, which we were talking about. So, you know, I think that was maybe one of the big things that we can talk about. Sean and Rick, if you want to kind of talk about the heating scheme for the buildings there.
Yeah, currently, like you said, our current design uses gas boiler to provide hydronic heat through hydronic heating through all this piping in that room. But if you wanted to go with electric, we could do that. I talked with the electrical team. We do have enough currently supplied on the site that we could go with completely electric heat on both the operations and the treatment building.
We had a discussion with the town of Dennis, not too long ago, and it looks like there's some rebates on the, electrical, heat pumps and things of that nature that you wouldn't necessarily get with natural gas, or fossil fuel, and because those are kind of discontinued as 1/1/2025. So it's worth kind of reaching out to Cape Compact, Cape Light Compact to see what type of rebates they offer. It's just worth the conversation.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to provide the contact. I could send it to Lauren.
Do you know offhand what the economics are long term as far as electric versus the gas, as far as operations?
It tends to kind of even out. I don't know, Sean, you might have more knowledge on that than I do. I would say that in terms of maintenance and operational costs is the question. Difference between gas and electric. I would say probably a gas system is going to last longer, but but on an operational cost that it's probably more expensive to maintain. Whereas an electric system is less money to maintain on a yearly basis, but they're probably likely to not last as long, if that makes sense.
Energy consumption comparison?
Energy consumption, you're likely to, it depends on your local rates there, but you're likely to spend a little bit more money purely just an electric heating system
just on a yearly basis. Your utility bills are likely to be higher. But again, it depends on what your local utility rates are, and that comparison could be made if we need to.
The town in general is looking pretty much trending in the direction of electrifying every building. So I think that would be probably the route to really focus on is electrification.
And I know, Steve, like Cape Light Compact won't give us a rebate on anything that's not highly energy efficient, so we'd have to stick to more energy efficient options.
When you speak of electric, are you assuming air source heat pumps? Is that?
Yeah.
So I guess Rick and Sean, like the idea, if we do electric, you know, what are our options? I mean, obviously there's electric resistance, which is gonna be, you know, much more expensive, but you know, I know some of these are large rooms and large volumes. And I don't know what the scale of availability of, you know, heat pumps would be for, you know, heating and cooling these spaces.
Yeah, we tend not to put heat pumps in that type of space. It would just be like an electric heating coil in a air handling unit to then provide air to the larger spaces, and then backup have like a electric unit heater to provide backup heat as well.
And you had
Yeah,
also talked about the air.
just to add on to that, so like typically in the wastewater plant industry, it's hard to take advantage of the efficiency gains that you get from a heat pump system, which is like, if you compare a heat pump system to a straight electric resistance heating system, it's about a 1 to 3 efficiency gain. So you get about 3 times, a heat pump system is about 3 times more efficient than a straight electric resistance heating system. But we're not really able to apply those heat pump systems in a wastewater process space application. We can apply them to your office spaces on the project, but it's not going to be something that we'd be able to apply to every space on the project, if that makes sense.
Any more questions on? Meeting? Emily? Is anything else you wanted to point out or ask Sean or Rick?
I think I'm all good.
I guess as far as plumbing systems, was there anything notable to bring up or questions or anything I had, Dave?
Well, one thing that we had a discussion while, before you joined the call, we had the discussion and we're gonna be wanting to put a eye wash and shower in the lab space.
Yes, I think I have one. If not currently on my sheets, it's going to be in the next set.
Oh, okay, maybe I might have missed it then.
Okay. Any other questions for building mechanical?
So, through all this discussion, where did we land on heat pumps versus gas fire? Is that, you know, look into it, the issue, or I think.
So I think Rick, Sean, we're still kind of talking about the building heat. So as far as for the kind of, we'll call it the wastewater process spaces. So we're talking the headworks, the pipe tunnel, the chemical room, blower room. You know, for heating those spaces, we're looking at, you know, obviously like the question is like, so heat pumps are really not suitable for heating and cooling those spaces. So our options would then be either using a gas-fired boiler system, or we would be using electric resistance heat and duct heaters, correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Just look at heat pumps for the office space.
Yeah.
Right.
And is it better to just have one type of system or having the 2 types of system? Cause more problems?
So, Rick, the question here is, is that gonna be a cause of problem if we have, what kind of maintenance issues, if we're gonna have, gas-fired heat for some areas and then heat pumps for other areas, and, if you could speak to that?
I mean, the access to the equipment should be fairly easy, so I wouldn't be concerned about maintenance.
And you were talking about water source heat pumps before,
Yes.
so air source heat pumps are out. They don't.
Rick, so if you want to speak to a little bit about the water source heat pump, that we're using for the operations building?
Yeah, that's we're using that as a heat sink to then offset the outdoor air temperature, because generally the groundwater will be a little cooler or more warm depending on what time of year it is outside. So that will allow the heat pumps in the office space to it'd be more energy efficient than just going with the outdoor air as a heat source or a heat pump source. But again, currently that's only used in the office spaces at the moment.
Any further questions? Okay. Well, thanks, Rick and Sean, appreciate you jumping on the call and explaining some of this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, so I guess switching gears a little bit, so I think I kind of covered all of the disciplines. It's about 2:05, doing okay. I think we can get through the rest of this in 55 minutes or less. So I guess based on everything we talked about before we kind of go into some permitting and some other discussions, are there any other questions on any of the disciplines or something that, you thought of after the fact?
Yeah, I did actually. So, I think in the past, we did talk about, what we hoping to recharge phase 1, phase 2 on site, right? That's the thought process. But we worked in the past, have chosen the place as an alternate site potentially. And just want to make sure that this site has, the mechanism in place to be able to put a pump station and force main in case we need to go that route in the future.
Yes, and I know the distribution box, I know we looked at that, Dave. I can't remember what we ended up deciding on, if we're deciding we build a new structure next to it.
So there's two options we could do. We could easily tap off the distribution box, add in a line that would go to a new pump station. Or, the distribution box itself is relatively large. One of the thoughts there is that we just add another pair of pumps in the distribution box that will pump Children's Place, and then we can put a valve vault and a flow meter, and then just route the force main over there. So,
As long as we have it in place.
Yes, maybe we could put some type of future area for future pumps. I always feel it's nice on drawings when we've identified that, so,
yeah, I mean, I would
20
probably,
years, what the next-
I'd probably reserve the area that's kind of to the east of the distribution box, probably put it in there.
Yeah.
We'll just need to maybe look at our pipe routing, how we have that route through there. Maybe you need to cut some things a little wide, to get some space to put stuff.
So from the D box, it would flow into a pumping station.
Yeah.
By gravity, and then it gets pumped up and over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything else?
You got one question, just on the screen.
Okay, oh.
This is Steve. Question for Whitewater. On the specifications, are there any equipment manufacturers, suppliers that you have issues with that may be listed right now that you've had experience or bad experiences with that you'd want to say anything, or is that something you could look at in the future?
Nothing that I've seen so far. I haven't worked with the Glasgow non-contact UV a lot.
Okay.
But I mean, that doesn't mean that it's not a perfect fit for it, and I know it's part of the process, there'll be. Martin, as you had said, we're, not necessarily locked in there with the specifications and things and looking at a few different options, but really everything as proposed. We either, work with or are aware of, and seems like a good approach.
Yeah, and question for GHD and Whitewater. As far as the SBR covers, I know it's a subject we've talked a lot about today. What % of the projects that you're operating right now, or perhaps from GHD's perspective that they've designed, have covers? Is it a high percentage? Is it a low percentage?
So from my perspective, of treatment plants I've designed, the ones that have had covers have been in the distinct minority.
Yep, I would say agreed, particularly on these larger applications. We have a big portion of our work that's decentralized in nature in very tight spaces, so we're more used to having stuff like that covered, but when we move into the higher flow applications, more likely that the stuff's exposed and there isn't covers on there. Run into that, I thought of that today as we were coming in here, in one regard, and in particular to something that Jim had pointed out, operationally being able to actually see the process and everything that's going on is important to an operator. But I also want to be respectful of both the political challenges related to putting a new wastewater treatment plant in the town and objections that go along with that too. So it's a balance, and you feel like you never picked the exact right application, but there are many wastewater facilities in all these climates that are outdoors and exposed, so.
And the ones that are exposed that you're operating on, have you had a desire, gee, I wish I covered them? Because we have problems with them, or not?
If we've had anything along those lines, it's been more as it relates to the nature of the influence and a lot of the components right after the influence. So clearly the screenings room here, the grip room, a lot of the high impact areas as far as odors seem to be appropriately addressed. But depending on how we manage the process up to the SBRs and the SBRs themselves, I wouldn't expect that to be a real issue. I can't guarantee it. Again, like we have areas even just regionally around here where the nature of the waste stream, whether it be really grease laden and so on and so forth, that can cause challenges. So, but if it's handled through the collection system and the way that the influent areas, as it appears with this design, I would suspect that's an issue. I'm sure from the town standpoint, the cost associated with this is a significant piece, and but that's my take. It can work either way.
Okay, thank you.
Questions on the discipline zone? Okay. So next on the list is the permitting and regulatory coordination section. So I did want to bring up our permit log, but it has got to be a very large document with a lot of information on it. So I'm not sure we're going to go through all of the details today. But what I did want to mention is that, and I think we did talk about it in one of our Tuesday calls, we are, Apex and GHD is going through the SRF application, basically to figure out, what GHD needs to provide to Apex, what Apex is providing, and then what, the town needs to sign or provide. So what we've done, one of our team members has gone through and kind of taken a screenshot of the SRF, application, and we're kind of just writing notes on each, page just to make sure everything's covered. And along with that application goes the checklist for the plans and specs. So we'll be, filling that out for our wastewater treatment plant set, and Apex will be covering that for their contracts. So we wanted to bring that up, and I guess from the permitting perspective, and I can share this. I probably shared this at one point, but I think we've been expanding upon it. Just trying to figure out who's responsible, some, dates, what are the required submittals, application fees, deadlines. Yeah, this one's going on and on. So I don't want to go through all of it. But I guess one of the things we wanted to kind of note and document was, for the most part at this point, it appears that we don't need to put in we don't need to get a planning and zoning, like any permitting through that after talking with, the planning and zoning departments. We did look back at our drawings and we've, met all the setback requirements. We do have, some minutes from that meeting, and also we kind of grabbed the regulations relative to the prohibited uses of the site, so we are looking at that just to kind of, if someone does bring it up in the future, we've kind of got everything, to back that up. So we're, working on that right now with our team members. And I think one of the other things that I want to bring up is we did get feedback from the Cape Cod Commission. I will admit, I was on vacation last week and I didn't read through it, but it sounded like a good one. So
Positive, yes.
Good. I meant to look at it before this meeting. So we did get that back, so that's good. And yeah, so again, we're anticipating to get all of the permits at least submitted by the October 3rd deadline. As we've kind of talked before, we're working on, or we are not necessarily gonna have all the permits in hand for this submission, but, we're working together. That's still the plan there. So I guess, is there any permitting questions that we have? I mean, we've got our long laundry list here. So really, I think the next big thing is getting the hydrogeo report submitted and then following up quickly with the groundwater discharge permit. So I'll be looking to get some input on that from Hillary and Apex, so we can get that out, even as soon as the end of the week or early next week. I think that's the most critical one at this point. Any questions or?
So you need comments from the town and us by the end of next week, or you want to submit it next week?
Well, I'd love to submit it next week. If you've got comments, a lot of it is the modeling details. But yeah, so we can, if there's something, I don't know, that you have comments on, you can address that. And it'll come back to us, if they've got any deficiencies.
Good.
Is there anything you can think of, Jackie, on that after a discussion? I think it was something. They have a good guidance document, so I think there's definitely gonna be some stuff to sign on your fixes on, but no, Jackie and I will work through that. Jackie Tucker and I. Okay, if nothing on that, we'll go on to the next item. So this is actually, and I think we've been kind of talking about it, throughout, but, we wanted to really, especially with Whitewater here today, talk about operations and maintenance considerations. I think we've been talking about some access and safety features. But if you do have, I don't know how much you got to look at the plans beforehand. But if you do have some, input on operations and maintenance or, some of the safety aspects, let us know. We did, for a lot of the areas, we did try to figure out, okay, how is this gonna go onto like a cart, and how are you gonna, get it out of the building for, repairs in the future? So I know that's some things that we, went through in the Headworks facility. So maybe that's a tacky look at it if you've got some thoughts.
I think a little more time with the plan set. We've done some initial, I think evolution of things is safety continues to get better and better for all those involved, public and operators. Operational performance seems to be well addressed thus far. And then the other side is the maintenance piece. And we've spent some time with that, but a little bit more for serviceability of the facility. That's an important piece that at times can be missed a little bit, but we've had great answers from the group today, and we'll do a little bit deeper dive as well.
And I do have a kind of adding into safety, building on that a little bit. I did have a note here from Claire, our electrical designer. She forgot to mention site lighting. So we will be providing site lighting for all necessary outdoor areas, being conscious of light pollution. And, we're gonna be having switched lights, as opposed to motion sensors, downward facing, night sky style. If you have any preferences on that. let us know, especially if there's any lighting ordinances that we need to follow. We're not like putting like big, light strobes on the outside of the building for alarms. I think the only one that I think that we're gonna have, I think we're probably gonna have a safe entry light probably on the headworks area.
Yep.
And then just kind of looking at buildings that meet, required foot candle for the site, probably have like wall packs around the buildings with all that kind of stuff, so. All lighting design will be in accordance with the IECC, so.
So you don't think there's any lighting ordinances and anything? Can't remember if it's even for that or not. I think so.
But, I would like, obviously, we need to have the building lit, but it would be nice if it wasn't overlit for the neighborhood.
Is there lighting on the transfer station or maybe not? It's just open during the day.
I don't think so. We don't have any lights on over there, do we? So see that it is gonna be a difference to have lights on. Anyway, period. So.
Nothing else? I won't go by person, I do that sometimes. Maybe at the end. Okay, so with that, we'll go over, so I wanted real quick to go over schedule. Budget, I wasn't really gonna touch on too much. I know GHD is in budget right now, for sure. And schedule, so let me bring that, I think open that. So, we are holding our 60% design workshop today. We did submit this package, I wanna say it was June or July 30th. It was a Tuesday. You remember that? Or the Tuesday the 29th. So yeah, based on vacations, we had to have this a little later maybe than we would have wanted, but we are planning on getting the SRF package, revised package. Again, our team's been, as you kind of heard us, we've been working on this. We didn't put this down. So we're looking at submitting another package on Wednesday, September 10th to the group. So this we'll be sending it out to all of you, as well as our team for a QA/QC review, basically concurrently to give us enough time to be able to address any comments or questions. So again, we'll go to you guys, probably we'll upload it on SharePoint again. We need to add anybody else, I think. Did anyone? I don't know if all the CPC members, if you didn't get access, hopefully, I know Jackie sent some files, with her large file transfer system. But let me know if you've got issues with that. So, and then following week, we'll be sending a revised cost estimate for inclusion with the SRF submittal. And then I put a design workshop, but really at this point, it's not necessarily a workshop per se, but really to present maybe any major changes and discuss, anything else that needs to be done. So we were looking at that tentatively being the 23rd, but that could, change a bit depending on people's availability. To give us a little bit of time. So we are honestly looking at, I think, having this pretty much submitted on the Monday that week, just to be able to deal with any complicating factors or changes or anything we need, and then also gathering up all the documents and whatnot that Apex will need to submit with the application by the 3rd. So Jackie and I can talk, but I'm hoping that we maybe aim to do a couple days earlier, just in case something crazy happens on the 3rd. We don't want to necessarily leave it to the last day. So that's our anticipation there, at least on, internal, and try to shoot for the beginning of the week. So that's what we're looking at. I guess that's the big target right now. And then obviously the Mass DEP will go over the submission. They'll mark any the deficiencies. I'm guessing we will get some deficiencies just because we're working on a tight schedule, and more to prepare things. Obviously, certain things will be the permits and things that we don't have in hand yet, but I've seen there. And then we'll work on final design. We're anticipating having that in early January. And then we'll get into, you know, the pre-qualification, bidding and award, towards, I think that we start earlier. No, right after that, so, right in early January. Be able to get out to bid. And pre-qual, the GC contractors have our filed sub bids. And be able to award by June 30th. So that's.
Lauren, do we know if DEP is gonna do a technical review on this?
You know, I don't know what you guys have heard, but we did hear that would you be as detailed a technical review? I don't know if you've heard differently.
Yeah, so like if you're in any other part of the CWNP, they do technical reviews, but on some other places they don't. Now, the SRF program is gonna ask, does the DEP review it, the Southeast region, and you gotta chase people at DEP, do you wanna review it? And then most likely they're gonna say no, but I think we need to push on that.
Yeah, I know the one thing that we like to do on our submissions for Mass DEP is kind of put in anything that we might not have exactly followed the regulation. I know we were talking about.
Oh, yeah, I think we were talking about like if there's a deviation from TR16, why we
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah, so we plan, or our normal process is to include those things with the submittal. So that they, you know, if they notice something, or they can go directly to them, it's like, okay, you know, they didn't have I don't know what it would be, like, let's say a redundant something.
Well, one thing that does come to mind, Lauren, that I am gonna note that we, you know, kind of deviated from TR16 is that for the polyaluminum chloride and for the micro C, we do not have a day tank on those because the day tank following TR16 would be like a 5-gallon bucket. So.
We could always get that. It's not hard to retrofit.
Yeah, so that's how we like to handle some of that, so, you know, we'll kind of see, you know, what their response is and how much they dig into the technical aspects. But I mean, I have to say, you know, a lot of this, and I think I was telling Hillary, a lot of what we do in the municipal space, we're using tax dollars, so we don't, unless you have a unique problem, we're not using unique solutions. A lot of this stuff is tried and true and used all over the place, so. Pretty standard. Any questions on?
When you put this in the end of next month, does that include the BOBA stuff and all that? Is that all involved? Is that in there?
The BABA.
Yeah, all of those considerations, is that in there then, or is that down on to January?
So that is incorporated into the specifications, both on the front end specs, as well as we actually put it in, we're gonna put like a note in each spec, because nowadays a lot of, the contractors will send the vendor one spec. And if you don't specifically say what things they need to follow, they'll just claim that they didn't know it. So not only will we have that in the specifications, but we've also been having, you know, our team reach out to manufacturers to figure out if they're BABA compliant, so we can kind of either figure. Yeah, get ahead of it, figure out if we need a waiver, or if we can just, you know, put in another manufacturer.
Yeah, I actually, that came up on another job I was working with. They were trying to track down a manufacturer and, you know, it was for a relatively commodity item. So I'm like, well, just go find someone else. So, you know, that's one of the things we've been having our staff go through and make sure that we're reasonably certain that all of the equipment that we're going to be specifying is BABA compliant, so that we hopefully don't have to deal with that during construction.
Yeah, part
So.
Any other questions on the schedule? Budget, like I said, wasn't gonna cover too much, you know, GHD is on budget at this point. You know, AX goes through our invoices. So risk review, I guess, I know I actually can send what I was gonna say for the risk review, but you know, what I wanted to say was that, you know, obviously we've had a pretty tight time frame to finish all this, but we are working to get our submittal in. And, you know, really, as I mentioned, you know, we might get a deficiency letter, but this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's gonna be just that we need to provide more information, or we need to follow up with some regulatory agencies to get the permits in. So just to, you know, kind of manage everybody's expectations of what that will mean. And, you know, we'll finish it all for the final submission. Okay. Any questions on that? Sure, catch if Steve has anything. Okay. Well, with that, I guess we'll go on to next steps and action items. So I think we probably have a few follow-ups and some responsible parties for that, but once we get the minutes, I know Kelsey's working on that. We'll follow up with that and let anybody know what they might need to follow up on. We actually, I guess we already kind of talked about the upcoming SRF submittal schedule. I got ahead of myself there. And yeah, just looking, I think, Apex will be providing a consolidated comment set. Oh, and I can bring up the 30%. We do have some of those answers. But I think you'll probably do the same thing. And if, you know, if anybody else here have, comments, I don't know if we want to just, you know, send them on to me, if you only got a few, or maybe we get incorporated into Apex's comment list. Feel free. And we meet every Tuesday anyway, so you're always free to bring it up then. So.
And remind us, Lauren, I know it's in the contract, but remind us how long, once Apex gets their comments to you, how long do you guys sit with them before they get discussed with us again?
That's a good question. I do have the contract on me.
Yeah.
But I could check.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to get
Yeah.
a ballpark of where we.
Yeah, so I mean, at the very least, we'll have, what's the next? I guess we'll have on the 23rd, but, you know, we can discuss or even put a little separate meeting together so it doesn't.
Yeah, I just don't want it to be too late in case.
Yeah.
And I just would add for the capital budget committee, if you have any questions, get them to us.
Yep.
And we can give them to probably to Apex, because I know they're generating some, their review comments, so maybe they've already asked it, so we can get that coordinated with them. And then, our next meeting or sooner, we can get back to the committee on that.
And as soon as we receive some comments from Apex, we'll send them out to the capital projects committee. All right.
So I guess we did have, and I apologize for not, you know, getting this, but we did, Apex was great and provided us an Excel spreadsheet. So we're working on the, GHD response for a lot of this. You know, a lot of this, you know, 30% is not a very far along design. So there was a lot of things, you know, that got incorporated after the fact. So we can go through, I don't know if we want to go through this one by one, but, we'll definitely have this week to you guys. Just to either let you know what our action item was, or if it already been incorporated. I guess that worked for you, Jackie, and Cedar. Apologize again for not getting the answers. But a lot of it, I think, you know, it was, you know, stuff that, you know, I can already know, like some of the hydraulic raid line, you know, we put some of the water elevations and things in there. And actually, we talked about this with one mechanical bar screen, yes. So we'll get answers to all this, so we can send it out to the whole group. Again, we do have the SharePoint site that technically anyone can gain access to, so let us know. You want me to add anybody? Sometimes these files have been a little big, so. Yes. Any other questions? Man, if I get this meeting done a half hour early.
Question, what was Apex schedule? What was Apex schedule for putting together a cost estimate for the plant to reconcile?
So we have the cost estimator working on the cost estimate for the 60% submission. We are going to provide GHD with our 60% comments, and then we also prepping a value engineering memo to go to you by next week.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I did pass out the cost estimate here. It was the same one that we had sent out, I think, the end of last month. And I think the only thing, if there was any direct questions on that, the only thing I wanted to mention again was that eventually for the SRF submittal, it'll be down to a 10% contingency, because that's what they limit it to.
So when we go to SRF, the plan set will say 90% on it, or is it gonna say 100%?
For the October 3rd.
Yeah.
We were planning on putting in the SRF submittal.
Okay. No
If
percentage.
we wanna put 10,
I don't think we should. Yeah.
I'd rather put SRF, if
I
that's
agree there.
okay. Oh, and I did also wanna say that we are changing on the plans, and David actually said we we're gonna do it to wastewater treatment facility. So it won't say water resource recovery facility.
Right.
So we are changing. And all these things are popping in my head, I apologize. Anything else? Okay, I am gonna go around the room. Steve, on the phone, any questions?
Also,
Okay, Zia, and Jack, no? Okay, Steve.
So it's gonna say SRF and it's supposed to 60%, but then in January, it'll say 90%?
So that'll be final or bid set.
For construction.
Yeah, for,
So when it actually have a percent, it'll have words in it, and bid submission status or something or.
yeah. So yeah, if we, I'll have to think about that if we do have like a.
It's nomenclature, right? But I mean.
Yeah.
Well, usually we say construction.
Yeah,
Construction.
Okay. Better than having a number.
Right. Yeah, good?
Quick comment, I just wanna say, I think after looking at the estimates. And we can maybe by the end of the week, but I think we wanna do something different with the salt shed.
Oh, okay,
I
yes.
think we should look at that further.
Okay.
We'll let you know as soon as possible. That's,
Like the design,
yeah, the design, I mean,
Simplification? I
yeah.
don't know what word.
yeah.
Doing like a fabric cover frame structure type thing, or?
Maybe a different structure. Yeah, we kind of had,
Less.
Dave, we had similar comments. I know
Prefab.
the salt shed kind of follows the same kind of aesthetic looks as the
Mhm.
building, you know, I think these massive foundations and the cost implication of 1.5 million for a salt shed seems a little bit too much for this kind of use. So we had similar comments, maybe go with a different approach. Obviously, we'll be interested to see what John has to say on this. But we'll coordinate the response. That's for you. And I asked this question last week, so if you carve that out, this field, you'll get SRF funding. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kim.
No, thank you.
Good? Jim,
No, I'm good, thank you.
Eric,
All set. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with everybody today.
yeah, thank you for coming. Sorry, I'm good. Jay. Rick.
I'll just reiterate to the CPC members, next week, you should be getting some memo and some comments from Apex, so whatever you have, let's get them to us so we can incorporate them, and then our next meeting is scheduled for the 9th, the week after Labor Day, so give us some time to get it, and that really is, since the tight schedule, really, once we get their comments from Apex, is kind of our value engineering phase, so that's our opportunity to, we might have to buckle down, and if we have more feedback from the 9th, we might have to schedule something quickly thereafter as well, so. It's kind of the outlook on that.
Dave.
I guess the only comment I had was that since we're wrapping up a little bit early here, I'd like to go and do a site walk.
Sure, yeah.
So,
Let him, John and Kim? Taylor?
Good.
Chelsea, all set? Okay. I will hold my peace. I'll have to later. Awesome, well, thank you, everyone, appreciate your time today. Thanks, for coming out with water and everybody, really appreciate it, and yeah, looking forward to getting the design in and East Ham have a Whitman too plan.